Okay. I have pressed the go live button, so I believe we are now live. So hello everybody. Hello one and all. Welcome to our post Diceborn season 1 live stream.
No.
No?
It's welcome to Diceborn!
Welcome to Diceborn! This is our stream from the 17th Shard where we're doing our kind of recap, just chatting away, bit of just chillaxing, talking about the season that's just gone by. Matt, do you know what? The reason I started doing that is because it gets me really hyped for an episode. Like,
do you see like how his mood like completely shifted?
Immediately
like,
shifted.
Oh, yeah.
we're talking Diceborn, everyone. So
I feel
yeah,
like your breathing changed.
my heart rate increased. So yeah, let's do some
Pavlov's dog.
Let us do some introductions. Let's introduce who we are. I'm Ben, also known as Overlord Jeebus, and I'm also joined by Grace.
Hello, I am Gator Girl.
Ian.
I'm Weary Rider, and I play Royce Hadriel because we actually play characters for
We
this
do.
stream.
I was
What are you
Well, not
talking
this
about?
stream.
well, I was gonna say. So what I'll do is we'll just quickly introduce ourselves, and then I want to talk about characters, like who we are. Because we actually had quite a few comments from people being like, "Hi, can you remind me what Hallie's powers are? I forget." And I'm like, "Yeah, we probably should. We'll summarize." I'm also joined by Matt.
I'm comatose on the forums, and Luca Ilariel is my character that we'll get to.
I'm also joined by Rosemary.
Hi everyone, I'm K-Myth on the forums and Discord, and I play Hallie.
And I'm joined by Natasha.
That's me. I'm the Lord of Roller, and you can find me out on the interwebs as Asha Ents.
Excellent. So yeah, so let's jump into kind of who our characters are, and I kind of want to do the fun little game as well here. For the people here, like for the giveaway winner for the Leatherbound, I'm gonna do these introductory bit first, and then we'll do the winner, and then we'll go into like the questions. So stick around, we'll get to it soon, I promise. Okay, so Grace, did you want to tell us about your Diceborn character?
Sure. She is Marilyn Dramali. She is a soother, and I mean, this is spoilers for season 1, right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah,
spoilers for
full
season.
spoilers.
Yeah. Full spoilers. Hopefully you've watched the whole thing. There's definitely some things in the finale that we need to talk about.
know what you're talking
I've been warned.
yeah. So we will be talking, and yeah. So whilst we're doing our characters as well, do you want to say like maybe how your character potentially changed over the season, especially not just character-wise, powers may have developed as well.
Yeah, so Marilyn, over the course of season 1, becomes a brass savant. So, wait, brass, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the right metal. Sorry. I sometimes say bronze instead of brass, so I had to like mentally double check that was the right metal.
Yeah, understandable. Cool. I think was there anything else you wanted to mention about your character?
I can't think of anything unless there's a specific question that people have about her.
You've been through quite the emotional arc.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Marilyn, over the course of season 1, discovers that her father died a year ago and is now a Khandra.
Or well, his bones have been eaten by a Khandra.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is
An
definitely
estranged father. Like there was a reason why she wasn't like up to date on his status.
Yes. Yeah, they hadn't spoken for a little while when they reconnected, but it was still very difficult for her to learn.
Yeah. Ian, did you want to tell us about your Diceborn character and how they developed over the course?
Okay. Yes. I also just got a text from my dad saying he's headed this way, so I might have to disappear at some point during this stream. I was not informed ahead of time that my parents were coming today. So okay.
Is your dad possibly a Khandra?
Is that a possibility?
Unlikely. Mm, I'm pretty sure Royce's father is dead. That's what I wrote in my backstory.
Hmm.
Who can know what's going on in the
I mean, at this
timeline?
point,
Who can say?
Who can
The
say?
future is unknowable.
No idea.
Royce is a twin-born. He has tin allomancy and copper fruchme, so he has enhanced senses and can store memories away. Let's see. How did he change over? So there was a point about like 2/3 of the way through the season where I realized like, oh, this character I've made is like halfway to one of my favorite tropes. I can just make him 100% my favorite trope and make him a very sad boy who is tortured and bad things happen to. And it's all his fault.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Excellent. Yeah, we will definitely be talking more about what you did at the end of the season as things go on. Matt, tell us about your character and how they developed.
Yeah, so my character is Luca. He's an electromisting, but that came out a couple times actually. And I don't know, Luca didn't develop much. Just kidding. He started to question his privilege and also the morality of his family and their specifically his grandmother and her wealth. He also got closure with his ex, maybe? I don't know. Almost got a spike and but also found his talent as a bluffer in the thieving crew by getting the team out of a scrape or two with his flustered chatter.
You definitely did very well. We're in some tight pickles that you helped us out by talking people's ears off.
Sheer moments of role-playing genius.
I do want to shout out to Mark Browning, who said I was rooting for Hemaluca.
I was secretly rooting for Hemaluca too. Well, maybe not so secretly as I tried to,
You were the one doing it, Natasha.
orchestrate that. But it's totally okay. It's totally okay.
Player me was rooting for it as well.
You didn't tell us. You refused to tell us.
Yes,
because we were totally willing to go along with whatever you wanted for your character, but you're just like, no, figure it out.
But I wanted the in character thing to happen, right?
Yeah.
And, like Luca in character was like understandably very distressed.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I wanted to see like whatever would happen, right? But I was like, Luca with like hemalurgy and having to like face that, and especially like the fallout of like Royce having to do it, like that was just too poetic.
Yeah, there's
still amazed we got out of that without a fight.
Yeah. I normally, so there's a bit just as we're trying to make a decision on what to do, where we just straight up ask you like, Matt, are you okay with us interrupting this? And normally that kind of moment, like that kind of meta discussion, I have cut that in the past because sometimes it's kind of boring, and sometimes it's just kind of like, we're just talking about what scenes where we want to be doing next. But that one I left in because you were like, no, you guys make the decision. I was like, I don't want anyone coming at us being like, you should have asked Matt what he wanted for his character. And I'm like, we did, and he said we could do what we wanted.
Yeah, and I was good either way.
Yeah,
and I think the way it played out is is interesting too. And yeah, like someone said in chat, there's a season 2. Himaluka could still happen.
Exactly.
I'm sure Natasha has more spikes up her sleeve.
Oh, I mean, Dervish is running around with the whole,
like a whole suitcase full of them.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fun.
Hemalurgy is fun.
Yeah.
I do suspect that if like there wasn't a non-zero chance of death because no one actually knew what they were doing, like I feel like we would have been more willing to go for it.
Yes.
It's like if
I mean,
we had a
technically
smaller
Royce
spike.
knew what he was
Thought-
doing. Dervish handed the suitcase of spikes over to the Khandra.
No, I gave
No?
my sister's spikes to the.
Oh, but you kept the other ones.
Well, I gave
No.
I haven't seen the Conjure since I got the suitcase full of spikes because I got them from what's his
Okay.
face, Dushimuk, Professor Man.
Okay, yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Smooth.
Yeah, yeah.
Smooth.
Tamuth Brunswick. Yes, I got the suitcase of spikes from him, and then I escaped into the night with them. I just have that now.
Yeah, I made you add that to your sheet.
Yeah. After that, when we were doing the wrap up, Tasha was like, "Make sure you add to your props the suitcase full of sea magic spikes." I was like, "I will then." Mark Browning in the comment in the chat just saying, "Imagine if Royce had done it and then it was the first memory he got back."
Yeah, imagine that.
Imagine that.
Who knows what he's going to get back,
Who knows?
if anything.
Oh, and then Bubbles goes on to say Royce can get the very moment before that moment back without knowing if he did or didn't go through with it.
Drama.
Oh, excellent.
Y'all are as bad as he is.
Rosemary, did you want to tell us about your Diceborn character?
Oh, right, yes. I play Hallie de Pizel. She is a fire soul fairing. She has brass metal mines and a set of brass knuckles that doubles as one of her metal mines because I thought that was cool because I'm a dork. But she's been through her own little arc this season because she's been quietly trying to take down the house that is responsible for her brother's death, and she's very closed off and super grouchy at the beginning of the season, and until Royce cracked that open like an egg. And now she's just sassy, and has been having her own little personal dramas that she's kept very close to the vest, probably to her own detriment. She is not going to be a very happy camper when Royce doesn't show back up. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Neither she nor Luca are going to be happy about that.
Yes.
And I have some plans in the works. I don't know. I don't know if some of that. I assume all of that discussion got like cut from. Should I give them a little bit of a teaser spoiler for next season? And what's
I
or
think what
not?
you're referring to has all been cut. We have a lot.
Okay.
I generally cut a lot of the post session. Data.
Yeah, I don't think we did any of like our level up or any of that. Like,
Yeah,
on-
no. Let's just say I spent a whole lot of advancements on something that will probably be happening near the beginning of season 2.
Probably no. It's a definite. It's definite. Yeah.
Yes, we need to plot a little bit more. And
Yes.
make this properly traumatic for everyone.
Ooh, got a comment of what is Diceborn? So LG Diceborn is the tabletop role playing real play series we've been doing. A Mistborn adventure game system by Crafty Games, and we've played through a little campaign. We've told a little story with some Mistborn characters on Scadrial. There's 13 episodes, which consist of season 1, and we're just kind of doing a little wrap up. If you want to watch it, I would recommend leaving because we're spoiling it. We're talking spoilers right now.
And any lost metal elements to influence season 2, I think that depends entirely on whether Natasha reads Lost Metal before we start season 2.
Yeah, and because this is technically set right before the Lost Metal.
Yeah.
it might be better not
Mhm.
to, or
Yeah.
There was one thing that I thought could be a fun Easter egg, and I think I mentioned in chat as I
you
was reading it.
did.
I
Yeah,
don't know if you
and I
wanna
think I'll tie that in.
yeah.
All right, alternatively, you could read it and decide, oh, I want some of this stuff to go down while we're playing, but
We
there
just kind of nebulously put it between Bands of Morning and the Lost Medal. So, like,
which
2
we
days
now
before
know
the
is like
Lost
a
Medal is technically
5-year
in
gap.
that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are things in Lost Metal that are in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
going to talk Lost Metal spoilers.
Yes, I was
specifically, but
about to say that.
We're
Yeah.
pondering
Yeah.
Yeah.
whether, especially Natasha hasn't read it yet either. We're not going to
Yeah.
spoil her. We're not
Yeah.
going to spoil you.
Yeah.
It's all good.
But I don't think it's a spoiler to say like there's a 6-year time jump between books, and we're not going to do a 6-year
No,
time jump
no.
between.
But I don't think we
seasons.
ever positively set exactly when we're happening.
Exactly.
So,
Like I said, we've always just said between Bands of Morning and Lost Medal, and a couple of days before Lost Medal is still with. So,
it
cool.
really all comes down to what Natasha wants to do to us. How would I like to torture you this time around?
I'll talk about my character very quickly. So I play Dervish, the Kolos-blooded guy that he is. He didn't develop any new powers. He didn't become a savant or anything like that. However, I did loaded him up with like every Kolos-blooded or feats. They're not feats. They're
Stunts.
yes,
Stunt.
stunts.
I do the same thing.
Yeah, I just loaded him up with like every stunt, Cold Blooded stunt I could. So his stats are looking good. And I've got like a multi-attack now, so I could have been like attacking 2 people with 2 chairs at the same time in that finale. You know, and on a personal level, he went from fearing that his family was gonna come try and kill him, as he was hiding in the city, to his family actually coming to try and kill him, and then him killing them instead. And so he's, I think out of everyone, I think we've talked about this. Out of everyone in season 1, he's probably the person who's leaving season 1 like the best. Like there's that, like he had bad stuff happening in his life, and he's like resolved a couple of those things now, and he's feeling pretty good about his life. He's got his own place, you know. He's moved out of the homeless shelter he was living in. Doing all right.
So you said you didn't get any new powers, Ben. But
Yes.
do you want to talk about that sword?
Oh yes, I forgot about the evil sword I have.
About a very awesome sword. That's not evil at all.
Not
That you haven't used yet.
I haven't used yet. It's very conspicuous, so it's hard for me to use in the situations we were in. But yeah, so I have a hemalurgically empowered sword with spikes in the grip that I don't think we spoke about what it does on camera. So let's talk about that if I ever use it. But it has some effects. If I use it.
See some of the effects with what Carol did.
Yes.
So we are aware.
Yeah. There was a healing element in there, and there's a couple of other things. So yeah, Devish, he's feeling pretty good. Quite happy with where he ended up after the finale. And Jarno, no, the sword does not speak. Wouldn't that be fun?
That you know of. You haven't used it yet.
That's true. I haven't actually used it yet. That's a very
it
good
hasn't
point.
started tempting you yet.
Cool. So more questions in the chat. Oh, if it was placed after bands, would we meet Wax and Wayne? Or Governor or Marisai? And I think we did discuss we didn't really want the main characters turning up in theory. So I don't think we're gonna have Wax and Wayne turn up. Secondary characters might. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Potentially.
Milan could be fun.
Aunt Milan would be fun.
I feel like Renette could be a fun one.
Ooh.
Fun one.
Yeah, yeah,
There-
Renette
yeah.
would be a blast.
Dervish might need to go gun shopping at some
Mhm.
point.
Absolutely.
And like Harmony has
Yeah.
been
Yes.
interfering.
Yes, Harmony has been messing with us a little, hasn't he?
It is one
Well,
side
he's
effect. If
been
one of us
messing
got
with
spiked,
Royce.
they'd be able to talk directly to Harmony.
You
That
know,
passed through
didn't
my mind.
try to make that happen or anything. It's fine.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I think there's just been some really pushy animals. Like, animals are like that sometimes. Like,
dogs just deliver letters sometimes. That's like a normal dog behavior, you know?
And drop
Absolutely.
coins outside of
Right.
a door.
Yeah.
Just horses,
Mhm.
horses.
Horses talk. No, it's all good. It's all good. Okay. So just in case we have someone patiently waiting in the audience to find out if they've won a leather bound.
But we don't want to save that till the end and make them stick around the entire time.
I feel kind of mean doing that though. The problem. I am just sitting here fully expecting the view count to drop as soon as I say who it is. But I will say the winner. So for the last episode, we did give we are giving away a leather bound given to us by Dragonsteel. You just need to leave a comment and be a subscriber in order to win. I haven't actually checked if this person is a subscriber, so let me just check now. Bear with me. They are a subscriber.
Okay. Which
But-
leather bound is it?
This is the Final Empires. This is just the first Mistborn one. And so the winner is Miroslav Minorik. I think I'm saying that, or their username is just Dark Mirrorous. So well done, Miroslav Minorik. I will send you a message on YouTube, just in case you're not here. Or if you're watching it, please send me an email at 17shard at gmail.com. And we will get that shipped off out to you. And I'm just going to say another shout out to Dragonsteel for providing some goodie bags to give away. Again, with the Leatherbound. Crafty Games gave us a bunch of stuff to give away. Love those guys. And then Brotherwise Games also gave us a buttload of Call to Adventures to give away, the Stormlight Archive Edition. R2B, I know you're there in the chat. You were the winner of the biggest Crafty Games giveaway, which was the Mistborn Adventure Game rulebook, the Alloy of Law rulebook, the Master of the Past expansion, which is fantastic. Definitely read that. And then the big Alloy of Law dice box, which has all. So well done, Arta. Hope you enjoy.
Jesus, Fruit, do I have lost? Alloy of Law dice set.
There you go. Okay. Cool. Did we want to talk about anything else before we jump into questions?
There was one more question sitting in the chat asking if we had any thoughts on how to bring the story to more people. I have ribbons.
Yeah.
I've been. We did get some interest just by talking to folks at Dragonsteel this year. I plan on poking more folks at JordanCon. We're trying to run mostly word of mouth, I think. And sometimes things like this just take a little while to get going. Please tell your friends how much you enjoy this. Anyone you know who is a Mistborn fan, or someone who you're maybe trying to get into Mistborn who is, a fan of this kind of game.
And really saying that there's a season 2, and that we've committed to this for more than one season. I think that's a big deal. A lot of stories, and that we'll have the same characters going into season 2, and that you'll be able to follow those, because a lot of stories and APs will cut off with a season 1 or just won't, explore fully that potential. And from like a background of APs, you're very likely to see a high burst at the very beginning and then a drop. And then as people, kind of filter in and see what it's about, that it will slowly rise back up, and you'll find the people who actually want to stay and stick around. But just like an author builds up, their backlog of books, right? The more that you have out there, the more that people will find, or the more that people will want to dig in, because they know that they're not just going to get like left. So really saying, hey, there is a season 2, I'm really excited for season 2. Here's some cool things that happen in season 1, not like big spoilery things, but like, oh yeah, they do play with, this little tidbit or this little tidbit that connects to the books, right? Those are cool things that people might latch onto and might be interested in joining us in our exploration of the world, as Brandon Sanderson fans. So,
Yeah.
And we do have some ideas for like 1 or 2 shots that are like, okay, like a more bite-sized thing to like introduce people to like us as players, if not the same characters.
Yeah, and I think the
It's
that
interesting.
speaking of one shots, I think we've already mentioned that in the that is going to be running a one shot for us early on next year, that we have had several meetings about now to discuss, which is going to be fun.
Interesting.
Well, we had the big one with all of us, and then because it's so hard to get us all in the same room, I think Matt's been having several calls.
Oh, I definitely don't have something later today.
And I think it's interesting, Tasha, that you're saying about that spike at the beginning, that kind of the tail off, and as we gained momentum, we actually saw that just with those first 13 episodes. Episode 1 did better than most shardcasts. We had 8,500 views on that right now. They started falling off, and then we started hitting those middle episodes where we were struggling to get like a couple of hundred views. Then near the end, we started going back up to like 1,000 views per episode.
well,
We love
and
those.
We're not quite sure
yeah,
how you do that. You're just tuning in for part of the story.
well, and I'm also hoping that we'll see people coming in and they'll see that we have a full season, and then they'll want to sit down and like binge it. I mean, not binge it, but
Yeah.
they see that it's completed, because a lot of APs too will fall off just like any other campaign, and it won't get finished. And so for people who, want the full story and not like the half done anime edition,
Yeah. Sitting there
seeing that
waiting.
a full season, it's great.
Yeah, I'm hoping to drum up some more interest. We definitely got some folks who hadn't heard of it at DSX who were like, "Oh, that sounds like fun." And I imagine I can drum up some more interest again at JordanCon this year. I got accepted as a guest to JordanCon, so it basically means I get to be on a few more panels than usual, and I didn't have to pay for my badge.
Yeah,
it's
just
not
wear
like
your Diceborn swag.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
We
and I'll have ribbons to hand out. And JordanCon is extra crazy ribbon culture there, so they're all
massively.
gonna want the ribbons, and they're gonna, ooh, what's this? And I'll
Yeah.
have to, and like to get the ribbon, I'll have to make them promise to
watch it.
at least a couple
They
of
have to
episodes
watch.
and try it.
Yeah. Yeah, we there's a few things we can do, as Bubble said. I have been tempted to cut some shorts. There's a few moments, but it's marketing is a lot of work.
Well, if any of you guys who have really loved the episodes want to go and like cut a couple of like clips that you really loved and like post them in the Discord for us and be like, hey, I really love these moments, like that helps us a lot, because
Hugely.
then we know what you've loved, and it makes it so easy for us to find and put it into a little video rather than having to go find it ourselves and decide, because we don't know from your end what's super entertaining for you. We just know from our end what's been entertaining for us.
Yeah, I'm like, I know moments I'd want to cut, but I don't know, if other people loved this. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, you can also
completely hating on Beatrice for no reason.
Beatrice in the finale, I think would be great because she was the worst.
She's the worst.
She's the worst.
It really is.
Are we done yet?
Yeah. You can also just throw something in the comments on a video, just a timestamp. I think this would make a great short. I read every Diceborn comment. I don't reply to all of them, but I read every single one. So always happy for very interested. Glorious Glorfindel did say cameo players, maybe. For example, we could get Dan Wells in one of the episodes, stuff like that. It's definitely something we've considered, you know.
Dan did just start a new job with this guy named Brando Sando or
Brando
something.
Sando, yeah. No, isn't it Sandon Branderton? I think.
Sander Branderson or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he might be
Branderbatch. Brander. Anyway.
Yeah, and
It's
so
fine. We might just have to guilt him a little.
yeah. I was gonna say
I did talk to him at Dragonsteel and said I thanked him for introducing us to Natasha.
Yes.
I did
and
too. I did too.
I did that after
And
him.
he
It's
was
like, oh, you're the second person who came up and told me this.
It's
Like, we would have loved to have you, but like we really like Natasha.
and he even told me that Natasha was the person he taught him everything he ever knew about GMing, about being a professional GM. So
Yep. I don't think we could have asked for more from a GM. You, Natasha, you knocked it out of the park. Absolutely.
No, and like I know that Dan was, being looked at for this position and that he just couldn't take it because of time stuff. And so he was like, hey, you should talk to her. And I will be eternally grateful that he did, because I have loved this experience so much. And I mean, I adore Dan. So.
Yeah. He's great. I'm looking forward to. I'm hoping we, as Rosemary, you were saying about Jordan Con. I'm hoping we may do some con stuff, like as Rosemary and Ian just showed. There may be merch one day. Who knows?
Probably not this shirt, because we could like issues with this company.
We're doing like pilot runs of various different 17th shard merch through. We're trying to do it through different stores to see what kind of quality we get back before we start just launching something for anyone to buy. We want to make sure that we've found a place that's going to give you, quality for your money. And the first one has gotten some mixed reviews, so we're going to have to keep looking. I'm getting back to gaming cons this year.
Nice.
So like I already know that I just got back from PAX Unplugged. I know I'm going to PAX East. Gen Con's on like my list of like a good solid maybe. Origins is on my list of like a good solid maybe. Granite Con is good solid maybe.
Which reminds me, do you want me to send you some of those ribbons?
Yes, please.
Okay,
absolutely.
I'll need to
ping me and I'll get you my address. But so like if I can take merch, I will. You can come find me. I will sell it. I will, say hi. Like, so for the gamers, I want to, maybe step it up on the gaming end rather than book end, because I think that would be cool.
That would be very. There is a question from Saint Zor, which looks like it's like a Cosmere lore question. We are kind of just focusing. The stream is regarding Diceborn, so we're kind of focusing on that. Plus, this is still my question. This is Mistborn, and so I don't.
Yeah, we don't want to cross over spoilers and things like that. Yeah. We're trying to. This is specifically for the game, so we don't want to go too off track there, especially since I have absolutely no theory on that, so I'm useless there.
But appreciate the. I think we've lost Matt.
We have.
Appreciate the enthusiasm, wanting to know about the single. Cool. As I say, yeah, I've been doing some UK cons, and I think I told Ian this, but at Comic-Con that's just gone, I did see Mark Humes, and gave him a little hi. Mark, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mark Humes.
Yeah.
He DMs High Rollers.
Yes.
D&D.
Which is the biggest British tabletop role playing live streaming. Because we don't quite have the same kind of scene for it that the US does. But there's some names out there.
I'm aware of yeah.
Cool. Shall we move on to some questions?
I will be right back.
No problem.
Mark Browning is requesting that there's is there any chance for a dice roller that shows accumulated nudges? And I think
Oh,
that's a great idea.
it sounds complicated though. Given the way we accumulate and spend them, that would be probably require just an entire new coding
Yeah.
structure on the roller.
Hmm.
And given that Paleo coded that for us out of the kindness of his heart,
Yes.
and I don't know how easy or difficult that would be to do.
Yeah, and we don't want to put any more work on Paleo. But that is definitely a Paleo question, not an
Yeah.
us question.
Yeah. Paleo made that. He did such a good job with it. And I think we
Yeah.
may have discussed with him potentially releasing it so that other people could as well. And yeah, and we could also make it open source, Mark. That's a good idea. I'll talk to Paleo about that. The thing is we ask him to do a lot, but he just does it so quickly and to such high quality. I've never known a guy who could just like I think he made the dice roll in like 2 days. He just turned it around. Yeah, very impressive. But yeah, we can.
Mark is asking, is the roller custom open source? And he's asking to have a crack at it. I'm like, I don't know. Did Paleo make that open source?
No, but we could potentially ask. Like I said, I'll have a little chat with. Also, Michael Kent, I've just written down UKGE because I was unaware. I always just go to MCM Comic Con.
Yeah, if you're looking for a gaming con, that's probably why you're in the Comic Con versus the gaming con is a
Slightly
different vibe.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Anyone more in chat?
Am I
Ladis.
planning on having any world hoppers join in season 2? Maybe. I'll just leave it at maybe.
Glorious Gorfidelis, how did we all come up with our characters' backstory? I'm gonna write this one down.
I think that's in our question bank already.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm just
we
checking.
should probably start digging into the questions that folks asked beforehand, since we have a lot of them. And for those of you who have questions now, you might want to sit back, let us start digging through these, because some of them may be the things you already want to know.
Yeah. I'm gonna, whilst Ian and Matt have stepped away, I think his parents have just turned up, and I think Matt is just, he accidentally spilled some tea and he's cleaning it up. And so let's do a question to Natasha. So a question for the Lord Roller. This is from Jean-Marc David. How much did the plot deviate from how you kind of originally envisioned?
I mean, there were so I'm when I plan plot as a GM, I plan in point A, point B, and then I know starting point, end point, and then it's just about how the players get there, and I know that they'll get there, and then I kind of just nudge them, in one way or another. So it didn't deviate a super lot from what I had foreseen. I mean, I had foreseen always, that the big final moments would be, Luca potentially getting a spike. Like I had always foreseen, Dervish having the standoff with his sister. I had always foreseen the moment of, Carmel. I had always seen, Marilyn having her, rise above what's his name? Annoying face. Yes, Al.
Yes, they are.
Al and Petrel. I had always foreseen Hallie having her, slowly coming out of her shell. So it was I knew what was gonna happen. Not everything was exactly how I had anticipated it happening, but it all eventually got there.
Wow. Good enough.
Yeah, some characters made different decisions that I could have never anticipated happening. When Dervish goes, oh yeah, he's the one, when he totally spoiled the fact that
Oh, when we
at
were Eddie
spa.
at the
Eddie
spa,
Yeah.
when I totally ratted Eddie
Oh,
out
you're like,
to
Yeah,
Hal.
like that totally did not foresee that. Still turned out fine.
Yeah,
Just
but
was a problem they had to fix.
you adapted really well to that. I think one of the things I mentioned earlier was how we did have like sometimes I would cut like meta discussions where we would talk about. But one of the things I wanted to say is I never like those meta discussions were never Natasha telling us what to do next. It was always like us telling Natasha, "Oh, my character wants to do this," and then us like organizing what order we want to. Never. It was never. Natasha definitely kept us on our toes when it came to what would happen in those scenes. Once we.
Well, and when it comes to like planning on my part too, like there was a lot of like behind the scenes, like with like for example, like with Grace before the season began, you know, I was like, okay, what plot do you most want a resolution with? And I'm sure her answer might have changed now, right?
yeah.
Like I feel like she might change that now,
When
knowing what she knows.
when I said I'm okay if like there's still some unresolved stuff with her father, I did not expect you to make her father a contra.
Yep.
Yeah, so I might take things a little liberally. But you know, Grace's answer was that what she wanted resolved was to be done with Alarin. And so that's what I made sure was resolved. And then, you know, that her dad was like, okay, well, there's still unresolved conflict there. Um, and that's kind of how I handled everything, you know, even with Luca getting the spike, you know, I knew that that scene would happen. I didn't like, I was rooting for him potentially getting the spike, but I knew that that might not happen based on how the players played it. And that I would be able to adjust going into season 2, you know, whether or not that happened. But I went to Matt before we had that scene, you know, when we went into the episode, and I was like, hey, Matt, here's what I have planned. You know, we're going to start this episode with you strapped to the table in preparation for this, you know, essentially ritual. And I was like, are you okay with this happening to your character? And he's like, oh yeah, let's do it. I was like, cool, excellent.
Yeah. Got the player buy-in, and it was happening.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any follow? I had a follow-up question. It's completely slipped my mind. Let's go through another question from the audience from Everett Whitaker. What were our favorite scenes to roleplay? And I'm gonna think on this. Actually, no, I have one. If anyone, unless anyone else wants to go first,
You can go.
Yeah, you go.
go. I'll leave you guys a chance to think on it. And Natasha, you can join in this one. I think my favorite one had to be the second Carmel meeting, where he was the horse on the carriage. Just because I was like annoyed. I was like annoyed at Carmel. I was like, you ate our horse, you know. I could basically just channel my own, not actual annoyance, just kind of you annoyance, and I could channel that, and I think that was my favorite scene to roleplay, just because I could really, I got to just kind of channel Dervish and myself in sync. We got to jump in, and I think it's very enjoyable.
And then we made him pay for the horse out of his wages.
Yeah, yeah, the whole horse business. I'm like
For me,
mine
oh, you
is
go.
mine is the scene where Marilyn and Eddie are talking before he leaves. Which is kind of like almost bittersweet in hindsight because it's like that's I think right before the reveal to Dervish that he's a Contra. But just that whole conversation of like Eddie kind of being like, I you know I did my best, don't you? And Marilyn just kind of being like, yeah, but like that's the problem. Like your best wasn't enough. I think it's probably some of like the best role play I've ever done personally. I just love that scene.
For me, it's pretty much most of episode 13 because I had to. The whole in the amphitheater scene was probably the most stressful RP scene I've ever had to do,
Yeah.
which was great. I loved it. But then the conversation between Royce and Luca after that evening, I really loved. Because you got some things that Royce had been keeping quiet started to peek out.
I mean, I really enjoyed the whole confrontation that Hallie had to do with with Marilyn at the spa. That was just a great emotional moment, and it was a great turning point for her with Royce showing up and pulling her back from doing something stupid. I did I know I've seen like some criticism on how Hallie should have totally done the thing, and I'm like, no, she shouldn't have. That was a terrible idea. It was absolutely wretched idea, and she needed to be stopped.
Yeah, I remember.
But Marilyn was not the person to do it because
Yeah,
of her conflict with Marilyn. Just like Marilyn tells you to do something, well, clearly I have to do the opposite.
I also kind of like that scene from my perspective because in the moment it felt very much like Marilyn and Hallie were talking past each other. Like in that moment, they were both very caught up in their own issues and very caught up in like they had personal things going on that affected like what they were seeing in this situation, and they just were not understanding each other because of that. They were just both too caught up in their own emotion.
It was definitely one of my high points of the season. I always remember because when I'm editing them, I kind of I was there, so I've kind of got them. I'm editing it in one screen, and then I might be doing something else on the other screen. Just kind of listening out for things I have to edit. And I just remember listening to when I was editing that episode, and that conversation just pulls you in. It pulled me in. I was like to sit there and watch it again because I was like, oh my! I was like, I even know how it ends up, and I want to. And I'm like sitting there being like, these two are fucking killing it. I loved that scene. I thought that was so good. Yeah.
Well, and I think when you write or create a character, you create a character for change. You don't necessarily create a character for growth, but Hallie definitely needed growth moments and change moments. And you see that a lot when finally like the little walls start coming down that she's put up, and I love that. So she gets to backslide and we get to do more, and it'll be great. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Terrible, Ian.
Sasha, you have a favorite?
Oh, I didn't. Okay, like I had so many. That's so mean to ask.
Like asking what my favorite child is, you know?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. There were a few scenes that like I literally was crying in, but I can't remember which scenes those.
There was a Hallie ghost conversation. I was thinking points.
The one when she was like, adults don't. Like when they were talking about adults. Like
yeah.
that
Right,
was one of
and
my
when she
favorite ones.
finally sits down and talks to him and just levels with him instead of trying to manipulate him into doing what she wants him to do. Like the entire crew had been doing the entire time. She's just like, look, this is why we keep doing the stuff that we do. We're trying to protect you, kid. It's hardwired into us.
And I think that was an important conversation for Ghost. Because I don't think like so much of Ghost is like I don't know. So much of Ghost is things that like I kept like very quiet because you all are the stars. But Ghost was very much from like the beginning. He didn't like, obviously he has a great family. Like you find out in the end he has an amazing family. Like his mom is incredible, his dad's incredible. You know, and obviously like they go looking for him when he goes missing, right? And obviously his dad is like always keeping an eye on him, even though, you know, Chester's always running amok and, you know, getting up to nonsense. You know, but he starts out very much like, you know, oh, my parents don't actually care. And it's because he views them as like not caring, right? As them acting like they don't care because they don't give him a lot of time. And like, you know, the very like childish view of, you know, being an adult and what being a good adult means. And then when he has that conversation with Hallie and, you know, begins to realize, you know, that adults are just, you know, essentially bigger children, he's like, oh, okay, like I'm starting to understand things a bit more. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to respect his parents and, you know, but like he's beginning to grasp that adults are not
Perfect.
yeah. And they don't have everything together. And so yes, that was a big conversation for me from like Ghost side of things, because, you know,
He starts to figure out that his parents, it's not that they don't care, it's that maybe they don't have as good a handle on things as they want
yeah,
to.
even though they are amazing people. And yeah, and they just have a lot of other things.
A lot of other kids.
Yeah.
How many
Well,
brothers and sisters does he have?
It's like 8.
Yeah,
Like-
I'm like, it was 7 or 8. It was a lot.
Yeah, it's enough that I don't keep track.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's not even, you know, at the beginning I was like, okay, maybe they just do have a lot of kids. And I was like, no, it's honestly not even just that they do have a lot of kids. It's that they're both also working like high position jobs and, you know, they have a big family and they, you know, like there's a lot of stress going on. And so just managing it all, right? It's not, Ghost is not falling through the cracks in any way, right? There are other things that he's being watched, like, you know, his dad definitely uses the force to watch him. They knew he was at the brass ladle, like there's no question in that. but you know, Chester's still a mischievous child, and
We're all assuming he's some kind of orphan street urchin. Nope.
well, and he hasn't been taught about being a Tenai,
Yeah.
right?
His parent, I assume his parents are at least aware he's an Elemancer.
I don't think he was aware he was an elf. So, yeah.
No, he was totally using it on us and totally doing it on purpose and just keeping it quiet. He's good at keeping a secret.
That's true. Welcome back, Matt. We're just discussing our favorite moments to roleplay.
Ooh, that's so many.
You had some really good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luca, like messing with the Connors on the train is probably a highlight for me. And then anything where Natasha was playing Luca's grandmother, because I started to sweat in real life. Made me very nervous, which was exactly what that character was supposed to do.
Well, and from my end, playing Luca's grandmother was such an interesting thing because, like, I wanted to be like, oh yeah, she's like totally bad. Like, she's meant to be bad from the beginning, but I didn't want her to like completely give away, oh yeah, she's totally bad from the beginning. And so like it was a very fine line to walk.
Yeah. Well, and I guess like for the audience, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this to the players either, but in my backstory, like I kind of set out things Adine had done in the past. But then I told Natasha, I was like, you know, maybe she has reformed in the years since she's been separated from her kids, or maybe she's the same person she was before. So, especially like that first episode when Luke was meeting with his grandma, I'm like, I wonder what angle Natasha's going with her. Like, is she like a former villain who's kind of reformed, or is she still going to be the villain? Um, so it was fun, like having that uncertainty for myself as well.
I think when I look back at that first episode, I think I came away being like, I don't trust this lady, but I didn't get like a big villain vibes, and so I think that line you walked, Natasha, I think you did a good job. I was like, this could definitely become a villain, but right now it seems like, you know,
And even with her villainy, I'm also still like, but does she still actually have a soft spot for Luca?
Yeah.
Like,
I know,
you
like,
know,
does she love him?
does she? Yeah.
She might
It's like,
consider him like a favorite pet or something.
Well,
Well,
because
you can
villains,
very
villainous people have loves and they have things and people they care about. So,
well, and you
um,
can very much tell in the end. I'm hoping that there was like a nuance to how she was handling the situation.
yeah, but I tried to do
Manipulating
vibe checks and
people
I couldn't
around.
get a read on her. Like, how much does she care about him? I'm like,
I love
Very
how
hard.
what just went down in the chat, by the way. That Lucy just asked Ben if he wanted to.
Yeah, my wife just asked if I want a hot chocolate in the chat. Yes, please.
So we'll be getting a Lucy cameo soon.
Yes, yep. Lucy will be turning up soon. Is Lucy's grandmother? Is Luca's grandmother a canon for Era 2? Not yet.
Probably not ever, since Era 2 is done.
yeah.
But yeah.
Secret History 2 is just about the Sliverist group that we are fighting in Diceborn.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to heavily feature the Hadriels, which, by the way, I only found this out like 2 weeks ago.
It was last week.
It was the last week. I only found this out last week. Ian made up the Hadriel house. That's...
Yeah, I thought that was clear. Like,
no,
from the beginning.
I thought the Hadriel was a house that was canon, you know. But no,
It's like, people like at the beginning of the season did pick up on this, but Royce Hadriel, his name, is a reference to the main characters from the Rhaenyra Revelation series, who are named Royce and Hadrian. It was when I was coming up with this name like 4 years ago or something outrageous that like I couldn't come up with the name. I'm like, that works.
Yep.
In world, the house is named after somebody named Hadrian, though.
There you go. That's cool. I don't like the smirk.
Lore.
I don't like the smirk you just put on your face. What did Hadrian do, Ian?
I know. Like, who knows if this will ever come out? Because like we would have to go like do something in Era 1 long term.
Yeah. Bubbles in the chat. I definitely agree. I think there was multiple times during the season I was like, I should really go back and watch episode 0. Session 0. And I never did. So
yeah, it's the fact that Royce and Marilyn knew each other beforehand is from there, which we only hinted at this season.
There's like
a secret part of me that like really wants to just like write like fan novels of this and like be like, hey, do you want a copy of my fan novel? Like, it's fine.
I really want to write like
it's canon now.
Yeah. I really want to write like a short story of like Dervish's life before, like the lead up to him killing his father and then leaving Elendel. I'm like, I've had it. I think I even wrote like an opening paragraph. I really should write that just because it's fun.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It'll work out.
If I ever got to become like
really good friends with Brandon Sanderson, I would be like, so remember that like weird game that we played online for a little while, and like,
Yeah.
so could I maybe just like a little short novella, like,
Yeah. Like, yeah. Do you know, you don't even, I don't think you even need Brandon's approval now. You just ask Dan. Dan's apparently writing stuff for the Cosmere now as well. So, you know.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna go ask Dan.
Yeah.
Just have him write something on schedule.
Yep.
Offhand reference to that completely canonizes everything.
Yeah. Just Hadriel's, you know. What's Lucas' grandma's another? Adine? Just throw an Adine in there somewhere, you know. Cool. Let's do another question. Okay. So kind of adding straight back onto that last question from Elijah Stormblessed. What was the hardest scene for everyone to roleplay?
The amphitheater.
Oh, I have an answer. I feel like the child, comforting, like keeping the child out of trouble.
Oh, during the fight.
Like,
The funniest thing was you asked for that.
yes, I did. But then I got into that situation. I'm like, wait, no, like I don't actually know anything about children. Why am I doing this?
That was such a great scene, you know.
Yeah.
Because like, oh, Marilyn, because Marilyn is supposed to be the one that can emotionally manipulate people, but like, what is a god before an unbeliever? It's like children, like, are their own special thing.
Yes.
Well, and I loved that scene too because I tried to make the child like Hallie-ish, and like to like complement that relationship between like Hallie and Marilyn, and like just their little like clashes, and it was joyful for me.
I think. Oh, Ian, you were saying the amphitheater?
Yeah, the amphitheater. I was so stressed during that entire arc because I'm like, because like we filmed 12 and 13 on the Saturday and Sunday of a weekend, so it's like I knew going into that session that like, okay, Royce is going to infiltrate the meeting. Like, we planned that far. I had given zero thought of what Voice was going to do after that point. And so it was me panicking and just like trying to keep the plate spinning. I'm like, I don't know. I'm going. Yeah, I was stressed out. I was sweating.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to die. I don't want Luca to die.
Yeah.
But you had backup, but still.
But the backup was us.
I mean,
so...
the dervish and I were ready to come in swinging.
Yeah.
Or, shooting.
Shooting, yeah.
And I still kind of boggle at how close it was that Hallie was really very, very close to shooting Adina. All it would have taken was one resisted riot, and boom.
Yeah.
That was going to happen. If Adina had tried to riot Hallie, and Hallie had thrown it off, which, given Hallie's wit score, was a pretty decent possibility, it would have, yeah. Almost took care of a major villain right there.
Yeah.
And caused a whole bunch more problems for the people next to the other villains.
Yeah.
Yes. It would have been bigger problems in the long term, but
it made me laugh that whilst we did disrupt their plans, how thoroughly we failed to actually like take out any villains. We had literally all of them in a room. And we didn't.
Had one captured, and the rest of y'all let her go.
Well, you guys just kept shoving her off onto the least physically fit
weaker and weaker characters.
Who is too physique plus has an ability that lowers her health. Like,
it was so great.
Oh,
Marilyn in that moment was stronger than Luca. Because Luca also has a 2 physique and was injured.
Yes.
So Luca was when Luca pawned her off on Marilyn, that was an upgrade.
Mistakes were made.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, but I love that because now she can come back at some
Yeah.
terrible moment and make your lives terrible.
Mhm.
That's okay. We'll make her life terrible too. It'll be a nice little give and take.
Yeah.
That's if
Well, and
Adine doesn't kill her off first. I'm sure that could happen.
true. It's true. Well, and there were so many
That's too easy.
outcomes from that situation, right? There was the potential there was the potential like that you could create allies. There was the potential that you could, completely like kill people off. There was the potential that like it could just go so badly. Like there were so many different potentials, and that's why I had it as like the season finale, because there was too much that like I could not plan for after that point. But it was so beautiful to just watch the havoc ensue.
And I think I said this after the episode, but not on the recording. You roleplayed like this cult with like 7 characters with like 3 different factions with their own thing, and I was like I just watched it back and I'm like, my mind was boggling. I don't know how you did it. You did.
So when it comes down to what was the hardest scenes to roleplay, the amphitheater scene was a really hard one to roleplay because it was a bunch of, different motives and different people, and like trying to make it feel like the room was full while also trying to not play so many characters that I had to keep track of. And then the other scene that was really difficult to roleplay, and I think this is one that I was like actually legitimately struggling with, and you guys like watching it back could see that I was struggling with, was actually the scenes in the town with the spa. When you guys go down into the when Hallie and Marilyn go down into the town. That one, I don't know why I struggled so much. It was just a harder scene for me. Yeah, I don't know why.
You say that watching it back, you can see that you're struggling. I didn't get that. Like, yeah, this is news to me.
I struggled with that one. It just didn't feel as smooth. It didn't feel good to me as much as I would have liked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably Luca's escape attempts. Just because I was always like, oh, Natasha's giving me an opportunity. And then being like, oh, but what would Luca do? And then especially when the horse that was totally a horse was giving Luca a potential out. And I was just like, Luca hasn't been around for any of this Conjure stuff. Like, he has no this is just a horse.
Canon-wise, we still don't know if that was a horse or not.
That's true. Canon-wise, we don't know for sure.
I actually haven't even decided.
I like to think it was just a horse, because otherwise every animal that we came across would have been a conjurer if that horse was a conjurer.
Yeah. But yeah,
the other horse that was pulling the other wagon.
Yes. That is true.
We're reasonably certain that one was real.
We did only have 2 horses, yeah. Only one of them was a conjurer. That's true. Yeah.
That we know of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that episode in general, like, I was really excited to be back, but then Luca was like separated from everyone the whole time.
Yeah.
That was like interesting, but it was really fun as well.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to preface what I'm about to say by Natasha. It was 100% the right move. I loved it. Made for a better season overall. That episode is called Plans Gone Awry, which was my suggestion. Because, like, plans do go awry. 100%, I was just talking about myself because I had plans going into that episode, because, like, okay, great, Luca's going to be back. Like, he's the only person Voice will talk to about certain things. So I'm going to start foreshadowing the fact that he's going to store away all of his memories at the end of the season and leave.
Go.
And then Luca was not there. And I'm like, okay.
And I think I spent the whole
Wonderful.
episode trying to like get you alone to talk to you about the whole Spike Chandra thing. And we just never got a moment alone together. You know?
Yeah.
I think everyone's plans that episode went awry.
Even that romantic invitation to shower together.
I don't know why he didn't take
got-
it. You know,
got
it was
like down.
That was that took me off guard. And I'm like, Royce, I just blue screened in that moment and like didn't even remember that he wanted to talk to you about like the weird horse thing. And just like, no.
no. Oh man. So
And that was also the episode like I was gonna like drop the reveal that Royce has feelings for Luca, which ended up all that ended up happening in the finale.
the I think the hardest one for meeting up with Leah again in the brass ladle. Like actiony scenes, I'm like, I roll 9 dice on physical rolls. I'm fine. But like that was like a social encounter, and it was just I was a little out of my depth when it came to like role playing. And we took a break like immediately afterwards, and I was like, we just chatted for a bit because I was like, man, that was stressful, and it's something like the kind of the slightly romantic aspect of it, something I've never done before, and so I was just like, I have no idea how that went. like, yeah, that was hard for me.
I love all the Dervish Leah scenes.
Good.
Especially like how they kind of book like they show his growth. Like just the first one when she's just like, I need to know that you will tell me what's going on. And then Dervish just being completely incapable of like talking about an issue directly. Like you're like talking around.
Yeah, talking around. She's like, yeah, it annoys me when you do this thing. And I'm like, so I'll do the thing, you know? No, it was good. I enjoyed it, but it was hard for me just from like I felt a little out of my depth, kind of. Yeah. Arta saying we need the shower scene in season 2.
Yeah. Bubbles, like it is a bit of a pity that I couldn't foreshadow it. I did try to subtly hint at it because like Royce was very focused on rescuing Luca. Very focused.
Yeah, and I also find that a pity. Like I wish the problem was is I had no real way to bring it out of Royce. Other than to put him with Luca. And the problem was is I was not going to do that because then Luca could not get to the point that he needed to be at. So that's what I was struggling with. I tried a couple of times, like vaguely, to give Royce an opportunity with NPCs to maybe talk about it. Like very vaguely, like, you know, but it that just was not happening because Royce is a closed book.
Yeah. I'll say, like, the timing of Luca's absence and return wasn't super in the group's control. So that's one of the things I think with actual plays sometimes is, the perfect plotting is subject to real life stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's also good for us to hear that stuff because sometimes we talk about our characters and where we're going with them offline, and I had forgotten that wasn't obvious in the episodes, and now I'm wondering is the fact that Hallie has a thing for Royce obvious enough in the episodes? I don't know, because she's played that pretty close to the vest too, and it's like everyone's gonna get their heart broken. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, and to go a little bit more in depth is that I didn't know Royce had feelings for Luca until role playing the flashback with Rafe in episode 9, because I had the questions like, do you love Luca? And like Rafe, of course, says yes. And so after that episode, like I go through the progression in my head of like, there are reasons in Royce's backstory where it's like romance is important to him. So like right now he's viewing like Luca and Rafe as this star-crossed couple that like, okay, like we need to fix that relationship. And so like, okay, great. I have my plan for Royce. And then I just had this lingering sense of disappointment. I'm like, well, that's interesting. Wasn't expecting that. Royce has feelings for Luca. And Bubbles, you have the comment, like, it was clear Royce cared for him, but till episode 13, it seemed pretty asexual to me. Canonically, Royce is asexual, but that doesn't preclude romance. So, like, Royce is romantically interested in Luca, but yeah.
Well,
not
and
sexual.
I think when it comes down to it, right, Royce is very much like, I want the best for Luca, right? Like, and Royce is very, not very open, but he accepts the fact that maybe that's not him. And that, up until that point, and even past the point of realizing that he has feelings for Luca, right? Of kind of rooting to get Rafe and Luca back together, is that, that we, like, as a cast, we've talked about this and we don't know who will end up with who.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an important thing to state. And like, as a GM, I don't know that I have like yes, these two people, I ship them and they belong together and like, till the ends of eternity, right? So I think it's important to say that Royce wants the best for Luca, and we might see like a fantastic thing where Luca and Royce get together, but we might also see a thing where it's very much like Royce gives that up because he wants something good for Luca.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Luca's just got to figure out what the heck he wants.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Question.
And also, like, this is the first time like Royce has ever had a crush. So he has no, and like he didn't know until after tapping that metal mind that he had feelings for Luca. So he's just a mess right now, and like that metal mind not like pushed him over the edge and like was what started his spiral to the events of the end of the season.
I think it'll be interesting to see if that does develop, considering what Royce did at the end. Oh wait, did Royce store all of? Because he stored all the memories of our crew time together. Did that include just the casually living?
So we talked about a bit about this after, and I think there's at least like Royce would still know who Luca is based on like how far back it went, but
yeah, like Royce has known, like storing all of his memories of Luca, like would be very bad. Like that's like
yeah, or just
nah.
That's too much, yeah.
Yeah.
How much do I want to say? He stored all of his memories of the time of working with the crew, which he was living with Luca beforehand.
Yeah. Oh, I think we did talk about this, where essentially to 3 months in the but like he was living with him still.
Yeah, because like he's been back in Ellendale for about 6 months. So I don't think we've established like how quickly he started living with Luca, but like give or take a month, so at least 2 months of living together.
Another question from the audience, from Dylan Beezer, and this is another question for Natasha. Which failed dice roll would you say had the biggest impact on the show, and if they said they feel like it would be spirits role. Many spirits roles we failed.
So spirits is an interesting one because when I do spirits roles, when I have people make spirits roles, I will never have the party make a spirits roll that is something that they absolutely need to move plot forward. That's just not how I GM. Because that's like unfair to them, but it's also unfair to me. That puts a lot of that puts too much responsibility on the dice, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's very, very, it doesn't work. So like spirits rolls are things like the mist spirits roll, to like notice the wolfhound lurking around in a couple of spots. In the very beginning of the season, that might have been a tip off that like Harmony was watching. There was a couple of other points when I had considered dropping the coins for Royce earlier on. And maybe if Royce had noticed the wolfhound, or if someone had noticed the wolfhound and interacted with the wolfhound, that could have changed things, right? So it's not necessarily the roles themselves that changed a big deal, because I like to leave things up to chance, but if it's so big that it's going to affect the story detrimentally,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. If it's something where it's like, oh, it might be interesting to introduce this a little bit earlier on, and give them a chance to learn this earlier on, and this could affect, how they play it forward. Well, let's give them that opportunity. But, they failed those, and so they'll get the opportunity later, but it will just, might not be at the most opportune moment. So, like, when Royce got the coins, it was like, in my mind, the last possible moment that Royce could get the coins before it became a negative in the story.
Okay.
But then he held on to them and just
For like
made it
4
more
episodes.
himself. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
fine. It's fine. It's all fine.
It's like, in my defense, Harmy should have known that it was gonna cause Roy's mental anguish to get it in that situation. He should have accounted for that. He should have accounted for, like, he's going to freak out for like a week before he taps this.
Look, but Harmony, I mean the Condra at least, was hanging around beforehand and was looking for a good moment to hand you those coins. That's just what it happened to be. Can only hand so much as a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Mark had the comment of that metal mind coin showing up is a perfect DM plot story backstory mechanism. Like, yes. It's like that was one of like 2 things that I just like gave Natasha. I'm like, I don't know what this is. Have fun.
And I
I
celebrated.
really like how it
Yeah. Yeah, if you're making a character for like these kind of campaigns, give your DM some things to play with. It's so much fun. Put characters
It'll
in.
cause you all of the best anxiety, and it'll be 100% worth it.
Yeah. I think when I made like my family and my backstory, I was not expecting them to then show up in like episode 3, and it was very fun.
I mean, my aunt showed up in like episode 2, and I'm like, is this her? Is this her? And it was.
Yeah, and give your GMs a physical description.
I did not do that. So it's like she's describing these characters. I'm like, is this the person? Like, it's the like I gave her like age and gender. I'm like, that's all I had to go off of. I'm like,
My favorite was I gave physical descriptions, and in episode 1, the first people Marilyn meets, Natasha starts describing someone who is like, is that Rafe? Is that Rafe? Are we doing that like right out the gates? And then it was like Rafe's brother, so like, oh, the resemblance made sense.
Makes
but
sense. Yeah.
yeah, but I was like, is she really doing this like right now? It was so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I always try to do at least one physical descriptor just because it's so much fun to introduce a character by describing them, and then you get that moment of like, oh god, is this the person I described in that exact way in my backstory?
I think I had that moment for Eddie when he showed up because he was also using a fake name,
Yeah.
and so I was like, I think this is Eddie. Like, I think this is the description I gave for my dad.
Yeah. I didn't remember that because I remember you like it got described and then it went a little bit of time went on and he went, guys, I think this is my dad.
And then like at the spa when Brayden was getting introduced, and I'm like, in a wheelchair. I did not put him into a wheelchair. Natasha put him into a wheelchair. So it's like, I'm like, is this like I didn't describe that. What happened? What's happening here? Like, very stressful.
Anyway, these things are important to give your name.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's grab another question from the audience. See, a lot of them are stuff we've just covered just by talking.
And I was looking through that question list. Some of this is stuff from the first stream.
Yeah.
This is the full combined question list, so I'm not sure where that cuts off.
Oh, there's a tab called post season stream. That's the one that all the ones
Yeah.
are.
There's separate sheets
Where are the
Yeah.
tabs? Why is
at
it
the
not showing?
bottom.
Oh, it was because I had the. It was because I had the thing small.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the tabs.
There's a question on here about how we decided which members of the 17 Shard were going to be on this show. I'm happy just to talk a little bit about that process. I kind of gave the call out to say, hey, we're finally doing this because we've been talking about doing something like this for, I don't know, before I started 17 Shard, which was like 7 years ago at this point. Or maybe not that long. When did Oathbringer come out? It was around Oathbringer.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been
2017?
Yeah.
yeah. We've been talking about it. Like, I feel like even like casually, like as soon as the mag first came out, we were kind of like, oh, it would be fun to do something with this at some point. But yeah.
So I put that call out to just kind of say, yes, we're finally doing it. Let's I think I did it on who's interested, and then people like submitting their names. Then I talk to people about their availability because obviously we kind of all need to be available for every session. Obviously that didn't work out, and I think we had a policy of like, if one person can't make it, we still record. If two people, that's when we'll discuss possibilities. And then so it was based on availability. And I think that and then once we got that down from availability, it was then who's got experience with role-playing games, who's done like role-playing before. I mean, Ian, Grace, and Matt you guys are in a D&D group together and you play pretty regularly. And so
not as regularly as I would like.
I was going to say it was pretty regularly back when we were planning this, but it's been like 18 months since then.
I think we had one like 6-month gap or something.
The longest gap this year was 2.5 months.
2.5. Okay.
But we've been averaging like 2 months between sessions this year.
It's been rough. We've all had a lot of stuff going on. Matt had baby.
Yeah.
I had to go out for a bit because I had surgery. We did our best.
Yeah. I think Grace, you moved at one point as well.
Yeah. And Natasha moved. But Natasha, you moved before.
You moved twice?
After session 2. Or
okay.
Yeah, I moved twice. So I moved right at the beginning when we started recording, and then I moved like in the middle somewhere.
Yeah. So it was just a case of who wants in, who's available, and then like who actually has experience doing something like this, and then ended up with us 5.
Well,
So yeah.
and I think it's okay to say, like, originally we were planning for a Grace absence based on like
Yeah.
timing of stuff, and we were expecting to get done recording before my absence.
Yes.
And obviously, you know, the world works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
and
remember?
I think, Grace, you ended up being in every episode, right?
Yes, I did.
Oh, there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah, because we were planning on the Grace absence like right after Marilyn finishes her arc, right?
Mm.
That arc. And so that would have turned out differently, right? And felt different had she not been there right after that.
And I do think what ended up happening was the time that I couldn't be there ended up coinciding with like Kamin's surgery or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it ended up being that it didn't really.
Yeah. Didn't really have much, like we essentially skipped over it. I do remember when we thought we were going to be finished recording by like May, June time, and then we ended up recording the finale 2 weeks before it came out. Or it might have even been a week.
Past us were adorable, and yes, it was 1 week.
It was 1 week, yeah. That was the quickest I had to turn around an episode. But yeah,
It's fine. We just stressed Ben out.
yeah, it's all good. I think I said this during the finale. We're going to keep recording these on a regular schedule. However, we're going to wait. I think we had 4 episodes recorded before we released episode 1. I'm probably going to wait even before we have a few more recorded before we start doing episode 2.
Well, and this time
Matt-
around, we're not on a release, like, right? We don't have
Yeah.
to get it out
Right.
before the book.
And
so.
and Matt's 2-shot should keep you guys'
Yes.
appetites slaked a little bit.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very excited.
I'd say we haven't given a firm release date yet, but probably not before March. March would probably be the earliest that we'd release
Yes.
the 2-shot.
Yeah. I'd say so. Cool. I was going to say, we had a comment in the chat from Metu Mortis about what is the best and worst part of the Mistborn Adventure Game system.
Oh boy.
I have answers.
Yeah.
Go for it, Natasha.
Go for Natasha, yeah.
The best part is how your character building can influence your dice pools, and how actually, Matt and I were actually talking about this the other day, how actually your character optimization comes in optimizing your like backstory and character itself rather than the stats, because by optimizing your character and the story, so like your drives, your traits, your destiny, all of that, right? Those things can be added to your dice pool. So by really thinking about that and really leaning into that, you're actually, optimizing the mechanic of
Yeah.
your character. And I think that is stellar. And I think secrets as a level up boost, right? To get an advancement by revealing a secret or by, playing with that secret is great. I wanted more support in there to give secrets, so we came up with our own little mini system, which at some point I need to write down so that other people can use it. But that is one of the areas in which I think Mag shines. The area that I'm not a big fan of Mag is I feel like because it is so narratively strong, on one half, the half of like conflicts.
I want to say conflicts, yeah.
Yeah, conflicts are
Yeah.
a mess.
Yeah.
It's just there's too much where you can it's like there are 2 different initiatives. There's the initiative in which you do, and you guys didn't see any of this because we ended up not playing with it, because for a AP it would have bogged down the stream too
Yeah.
much, and it would have been super annoying for all of you to watch. So like you work in order of like your wits. To determine the action that you are planning to take. And then the actions actually happen in the order of
I want to say
largest
physique?
dice pool to smallest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like there's two different initiative orders. There's a round of planning, and then there's a round of acting in which all of the characters go in order each time, in which the GM has to manage each individual main big baddie. The little baddies are all grouped together, which is nice, but you have to manage each individual main big baddies. You have to have them all planned. It's just very complicated and feels like a
Yeah.
chess match, which is great if you want that.
Hmm.
And so I felt like the contrast of the two sides of the system doesn't work, right? Playing this very narrative light simple side on one end of the spectrum, and then getting really deep into these conflicts and really crunchy and into a chess match, which supports the Mistborn feel. It's just really not good for an AP. So anyway, that's my opinion.
Isn't it like when you announce what you want to do, you have to like decide how many of your dice are like offensive and defensive?
Yeah.
It's a chess match.
Yeah.
That's the simplest way of putting that. Is there's a lot of nitty gritty.
Oh, I did have a thought that I don't think we realized when building these characters how much like optimization there actually was in the character traits. I think that's something that we kind of, if we building characters for like one shots and things, are more aware of.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. I had the most OP thing.
I would not be surprised if you used information acquisition more than you didn't. I reckon you probably had that on more than half your rolls.
I'd say it's close to 50-50.
Yeah.
Because most of my rolls were me trying to acquire information.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's because of what you're good at as a character, right?
It's what he cares about.
There are just some really wild things in the mag that are absolutely ridiculous. Even just some of the basic math, because in canon, Twinborn are super rare. In the book, they're like 1 in every 50 people is a allomancer, 1 is every 50 people is a ferrochemist, and you're like, really? Because you sit down and you start doing the math and you figure out that would mean that there are thousands of Twinborn in Elendel alone.
Yeah.
You would have like 4 or 5 of each type of compounder. This clearly does not actually happen. Ergo, I don't think they really sat and thought about those numbers very hard.
It's so hard to balance as well. Just talking about like the balance of it. Furukami just in the books like has like its downsides, but in the game those downsides don't really come up. Like Hallie just says, "Oh, I spend a bit of time cold." If you were a character, that's like a bad thing. But in the game, it's like
I deliberately picked one of the ferrochemical powers that is useful either way.
Yeah.
Because if you're overheated, stuff some heat in there. If you're if you're cold, pull some out. It works either way, and then you can do some weird stuff. But I mean, it's not too difficult for someone of her skill set to be able to just get into a hot factory with some machines and muck around for a while. So
yeah,
I mean, she could literally sit right next to a furnace and just soak it in.
I've said this many a time, and I would still really love to see it, and maybe I'll do it sometime. I just need to find the time. But like a Forged in the Dark adaptation of Mistborn, I think would be excellent for narrative and for combat. It just would function very differently than Mag. And I love Mag. It's just they do things just very differently. And so I think that adaptation, it would just be interesting to see, I think.
And I think the main thing too with the conflict rules isn't necessarily that the conflict rules are bad. It's just weird. Like they don't fit like the rest of the game is so narrative focused, so it's
Yeah.
weird to get like the conflict system wouldn't be as out of place in a really crunchy system with like a
Absolutely.
lot of mechanics.
And that's what I was saying is like this
Yeah.
game it feels like you have the narrative game and then you have this very mechanical game, and it's like you've put them together in one, and it's not that either part is bad, it's just that they feel very mismatched. And so we chose to use that narrative portion. So if you really love like the combat mechanics, they're there. Like they're there and you will enjoy that chess match. And I actually really enjoy the idea of, you know, like pulling out the mag game for a home game and going through those like really nitty gritty, you know, chess, like I keep saying chess rules because that's what it feels like to me, because it's very strategic in how you move things. So yeah, like I think they're really well done, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just for an AP and for a narrative group, it's just not.
Yeah, like just
It's the
something.
worst in that way.
Yeah,
if that
like
makes sense.
the couple of very brief, quick fights we had. For example, like when we had to punch out a couple of guards a couple of times, we did that in one roll and we kind of moved on. If we used the conflict rolls, it would have been like 2 rolls per character per action, almost. I think because it would be like an attack and defense, and then it would be, you know, chipping away at each other's health. Because then also you can like knock someone out, like just doing any damage. I think if I remember correctly, just doing damage to someone's health can be enough to like take them out of a fight. Like according to the mag, it's like, oh, you've wounded them, you've knocked them down on the ground, they're on the floor, and they're not going to get back up again. But they've still got like 6 health left. You know, it's weird.
Well,
it's
There's
and I
a
think
lot
they
of
treat
decisions to be made.
yeah.
But
No, I think my favorite part. This is nothing to do with mechanics. This is the Twinborn stunts are ridiculous. They are so stupid, and I love them so much. The Twinborn compounding of the calorie, that is
Bendalloy.
bend alloy.
No.
The bend no.
Yes.
Yeah, it's bend alloy.
Yeah. The bend alloy compounding is, I think I've mentioned this before, gives you like light shape-shifting abilities because you add and take away fat from certain parts of your body using it. So you can like, it's like you can't change your shape, but you can change your face to like to look like other people. And so by adding and taking fat away from your face, you can shapeshift. So I was like, that's fun. And then the other one is the iron, the weight compounding, where you essentially turn yourself, you just massively tap like a huge amount of weight, and you essentially become like an immovable object where you can't move yourself because you're so heavy, but also you're basically invincible. And so you can, the example they give is you can do this in front of a car, like a speeding car, and you'd stop the car and you'd be fine. And like, so I'm like, that's interesting. So yeah, it's there's some really funny stunts in there for the compounding stuff. That's my favorite part. Cool.
Sorry, one other part I really like that I didn't learn is like how the traits are more important really than your stats in a lot of ways, because you are going to apply them to more roles. And this kind of goes to what Natasha was saying about optimizing your character. But I think I was coming initially from the D&D perspective of, oh, like you got your attribute scores and you got to improve them when you level up, and that's you know, part of improving your character. But in this game, you know, it's almost like you can have a really low applicable like attribute score or standing and still do really well or roll a lot of dice if you can apply a bunch of your traits. So
And I like the ability to add new traits as you go. You go, oh, well, my character is gotten good at this. Or I can just add a new type of trait. So, you know, there's a whole lot that you can do to add them on.
Yeah. TC in the chat just dropping in to say they're loving the series so far, but they haven't finished it, so they can't stay. Thank you, TC. Yeah, love you, and enjoy the rest of the season. Mark Browning in the chat asked, "What do we think the party's biggest hole is?"
Combat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
See-
like Dervish and Hallie, I feel like it's more like in Allomancy we have no Seeker, no Smoker, and no Iron or Steel.
Yes.
Allomancy.
Yeah. And those are all like that is, I think we've all agreed, that is our biggest hole, is those things. But like they're so prevalent in the books. They use so much in the books. I really enjoyed using the non, like the ones that didn't get as much of a spotlight in the books. I realized our crew had to work around that.
I mean,
It's
we
okay.
almost got a Seeker.
It will come bite you in the butt, maybe. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
we have spikes. We can improve ourselves.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
At a cost.
at a cost.
Mark is all Dervish is a combat. Dervish is a combat machine. Dervish got his butt handed to him the first combat that we had, and
Dervish-
Hallie took the fucking
One.
The best one. Dervish
very first one.
calm.
And Hallie, this tiny little thing, winds up
Dervish constantly forgets Pooter arms are a thing, which is another way of saying I can constantly forget that Pooter arms are a thing. And so like during that first combat, I was like, oh man, he's a Pooter arm. Oh no, my 9 dice, he gets just as many. And then when I jumped into the arena, I think we took in the finale, I think we took a break, and then I think we came back. I think Ian was like, yeah, sure hope no one's a Pooter arm in that room. And I was like, oh no, I've done it again.
Yeah, because I was like, you do realize, like, this is a whole room.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, in my head, I was like, this whole room is gonna be mostly allomancers.
Yeah.
And a
even if
couple
there's just the
hemalurgists in
spiked
here.
flavor.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys are gonna have some issues if you really get into a fight. And I was just waiting for them to like do something really stupid.
Yeah.
Except for Speth, because we established he's not a threat.
Yes. Yes.
At all. Because
He just.
Well, that's just Sveth has terrible luck.
Yeah.
Sveth, the dice were just out to make him a complete moronic being.
Yeah.
But it was
for one,
so
hope they
great.
Continue.
Yeah.
It was so great to contrast him with Mirabelle.
Yeah. Yes. I think Grace, when I went down during the heist in the beginning, you were just like, yeah, sometimes the dice just tell a story, and I'm like, don't they just?
Well, and that was so like, I mean, because this is one of Ben's first, RPGs. I was like, I hope Ben isn't really upset, because like,
I was scared. Like, I was actually gonna say, because Mark did ask, is this anyone's first RPG? And I talked about how, I picked who it was based kind of on a bit of an experience. This basically was my first RPG. I'm here just because I'm like, I'm gonna get this series done. Like, we've been talking about it for so long, I'm gonna get it done.
Yeah.
Like,
I
When
think
you're
I
the
might,
producer, you can just add yourself.
I just get to be here.
of all of us, I might be the one who's been role playing the longest, just by virtue of my age.
Yeah.
Because I started in like college, 1995.
yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. I think it was because we did our first couple of practice sessions late last year, and then I only we did the practice sessions, and then I played D&D for the first time like the first week of January this year. And so yeah, I'm very new to RPGs. And so
which also is like so impressive that the first time we tried to get this going, Ben was going to be GMing it.
Yes.
And then we didn't go
yes.
forward. But in hindsight, I'm like, Ben, like, of
Yeah.
course it was stressful.
Yeah. So about, I want to say 3 years ago now.
It was more.
Or maybe
It
4.
was like 4.
Yeah.
or
I
something.
I DM'd a couple of sessions. And again, it was my first ever time playing RPG games. I know I was DMing, and I just couldn't do it after those first sessions. I was like, this has been the most stressful playing of games I've ever had in my life. And I was like, I don't think I can do this, guys.
Yeah. And as a player, you did very well.
Okay, good.
All of us had a lot of fun, but
yeah,
I could totally see why, from your perspective, it was like a little too much.
yeah. Oh,
At some point, we have to bring back the Spice Girls.
we do need to bring the Spice Girls back.
Yeah.
Do I even want to know?
So
That was the name of our gang.
Yeah.
There's a offhand comment in one of the books that Vin makes that is something's as intoxicating as street spice. So then we came up with this like drug gang, and we were all playing female characters, and then we were like, oh, we're the Spice Girls. And they were, that's not true. There was one male character, I think.
I think Eric.
But he was played by a woman.
Monica.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But
Just imagine Dame Maggie Smith from Downton Abbey as a drug queen pin and also a pewter arm.
yeah.
I
had
fun with her.
In our finale, there was a scene where they were getting our opponents were getting away, and then Ian's character, the old lady, like pewter arm dashed after the carriage and like stopped it in its tracks.
No, I jumped onto it and then I beat the guy to a pulp.
Yeah. Oh man, but yeah, I'm glad things ended up the way they did. I think this ended up very well.
Yeah, the way they were supposed to be. Like, this feels like it was.
Yeah.
Can I quickly answer the question of, I love that from Mark Browning, I love that Sveth evolved into a comedic effect. Did you change his stats to make that more likely as you went? No.
He
delivery was
tell a
perfect.
story.
the dice tell a story.
Well, and sometimes because we can see how many dice are being rolled. Like, sometimes he was rolling a lot of dice.
And he was just rolling nothing.
Yeah.
Oh man. Cool. Let's grab another one from the list that people sent in. I think there's one here, and I think there was one in the chat of just like how as a GM, what do you, was that also the one in the chat was, as a GM, how would you prefer for the campaign like this? And then there's just general, how did we all prepare for our campaign? So I don't know if you want to take that, Natasha, or how you prepared a bit.
Why don't you talk from your guys' side first?
Okay.
And then I'll.
Okay. As I say, so I'll do it a bit from the kind of production side of things, and then go into just, if you're not producing a series and you're just starting a campaign, what do you do then? We made the decision to do it, which is important, to decide to do it. Then kind of finding the DM. The DM is extremely important for the game, just because you need someone who's like, you don't want a DM that's just going to drop out partway through. You want a DM who's comfortable doing a campaign. And then this is why we spoke about this, and someone who has the time to actually make a quality campaign as well. None of us here at the 17th Shard do this full time. We all have like day jobs. But Natasha does this as a pretty much, her main job is games like this. And so that's why we kind of decided, let's not go for one of us to DM it. Let's get a professional DM in. And I think we said before, I approached Dan Wells, he recommended Natasha. And so once we had the DM, we then, me and Natasha, we had we chatted at length about like, oh, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's a bit of planning. And then we had meetings. Did we have a meeting before the session 0? Yes, we did, because we had the test sessions. We had a couple of test sessions to make sure the group worked. And it did. And then we had our session 0. so that's just kind of, and then once we had the session 0 and we knew exactly who our characters were and what we were happy with them, that's when we started commissioning the character art. That's when we got the background art from Connor Chamberlain. We got Sharaf, who is very, very well known in the Cosmere space, to do the character art, and we had Paleo do all the branding, because again, Paleo's a magician who can do anything, and
It's true.
yeah, he did the logos, he did the color schemes, he did the intro with the Kelsia flying through the O, knocking in the die. He did all of that.
I'm pretty convinced that Paleo is secretly like 5 goblins in a trench coat, and like they
It's
each know
only
like
explanation.
something different.
He is tall enough for that to be plausible.
Yes.
Having met him in person at Dragonsteel.
Yeah, he's like 6'4", I think.
But I mean, having seen him in person, though, if he is 5 goblins together, they're more like Sleepless, where they really fit together seamlessly.
And so yeah, and then he then also built the dice roller for us. Well, also I think working on the map, we've got the Brochard map. He does work on that as well. Like I said, he's just a wizard. And then
and did someone ask him to build the dice roller, or did he just do that
I
of his own
think
initiative?
I had a very simple request for him, and I can't remember what it was. I think I just asked, hey, that was it. I said, hey, I just want to be able to roll dice in a square. Like, I just want to, let's say Ian's rolling 6 dice. I just want to be able to hit 6 dice, and then it rolls it in a square. And so then he took that and just built something way above and beyond that requirement, where he's like, cool, it's a website that you all log into, you all got your own usernames, you can all define how many your dice is. By the way, I individually modeled and shaded every single dice from the Crafty Games' Mistborn dice set. They then all roll, it counts your nudges, you put in a difficulty, so it tells you if the difficulty's up. It displays your username, there's a history in there as well. The viewers can't see the history, but we have a history of like all the dice rolls done. Oh, and then also you can integrate it into your OBS so that it's just like part of the screen, so I'm not having to record the whole screen.
He did that in 2 days.
And he did that in like 2 days. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, like I said, Paleo is like literally one of my favorite people in the world. He is crazy. He's a wizard.
He works in a speed bubble.
Cool. So yeah, so that's kind of how I went about like putting the series together. How we prepped. Do you guys want to talk about how you approach building a character for a campaign that's kind of like narrative focused like this?
I mean, a lot of what I did was in the session 0, putting things together. I kind of had a vague idea of what I wanted. I wanted a mechanic turned safecracker. I had Hallie, and I had her powers figured out, and who she, and what her stuff was, and a little bit of her backstory. But really, it wasn't until we started digging into session 0 that I was really able to start fleshing out her personality and the little triggers of why she does the things she do.
Yeah.
This is hard for me because that I was actually chatting with Natasha earlier this week about just like letting ideas sit and percolate in your brain for a very long time and see what happens. So Royce 1.0 was originally going to be for the real game Ben was gonna run.
Oh yes.
And so it's like that character had been sitting in my head for 4 years. And then when we decided like we were doing Era 2, it's like, okay, like take that character and like changing some things, keeping some things the same, like the cousin dynamic that like of like being the cousin of the heir, like was something from like the original character that I brought forward. I changed like his metal powers and I made him a twinborn. But this was also like a year ago.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm I build characters very organically. I think like I come up with like an initial concept, and then it just blobs out from there. But I also like come up with character concepts very quickly.
So I have to say, I get like full paragraphs after we play from Ian that I read, and my brain is like half melted from the session. And I'm like, and I read them, and like he just doesn't get a response, and I like feel bad half the time, but like I feel like he knows me by now, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this at this point. Like I don't know what to do with this. And so like he just messaged me this last week, and he's like, "So have you had a chance to look over this for season 2?" And I'm like, I mean, yes, I've looked at it, but season 2 is like so like it's months out. It's months out. I don't know what I'm gonna do in like 3 months time. You're asking me to plan. I just don't do that. I'm gonna let it sit and percolate and become a stew, and then we'll serve it later.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to find out a way for Royce not to die during the season break. I'm like, he needs to at least make it to episode 1. Like, how do I make this happen? But going off of like me messaging lots of things because like going back to figuring out Royce has feelings for Luca. Like I like went through that whole spiel like to her, and she's like, "Oh yes, this is where I wanted it to happen." I'm like, "You wanted me to torture my characters. Like you're a monster."
That's what a good GM does.
Yeah.
Well, and there are other moments with other characters that I was like, "Oh yes, I was hoping this would happen," because like I can see like I've been doing this long enough, and this isn't like just like a hype myself moment. Like this is just I've been doing this so long that I can see naturally players will have like little like story seeds that they sow into their character's backstory that they don't necessarily realize. And I mean, I do this as a GM as well. I don't realize that they're there, but when I can see the forest for the trees, they're standing right up against their tree. And so I'm like, oh yeah, these trees, their roots are going to intertwine in this way at this point. So I just have like a higher level view of things. And so I'm like, I really hope this will happen. And so whenever it does, I get very happy. And I'm like, oh yes, good.
And some pieces we add in as we go, as we figure more out about our characters. We add more details and more depth to the characters. Like in the first stream, when I got asked, where did Hallie get her brass knuckles? I had to think about that question. Where did she get her brass knuckles? Okay, here's the story for how she got why she got them. And sometimes it's a matter of this question has come up. What is the answer? Oh, this is interesting. This is a new piece about my character I just put together.
Humans are incredible at filling in gaps.
Yes.
I
We
feel
will
like
find the gap, force something in there, make it make sense, and it does make sense, and it feels good.
yeah, I feel like for me, to the like endless frustration of people who DM me, my default state for characters is like, here are 6 bullet points about their life, and everything else is just gonna come out in the sessions as I play. So like I feel like having the session 0 actually kind of forced me to do character building, like more in-depth character building before we got into the sessions, which was probably good. But like even with that, I'm probably gonna go back in between seasons and like revise my backstory with lots of like new stuff that like I came up with as we played and send it back to Natasha. So yeah, I think for me, I came into session 0 with the idea of like Marilyn is a con artist who is a soother, and then pretty much everything else was probably come up with in the session 0, and then the session 0 stuff was put into a doc with not much else and was sent to Natasha.
Well, and I think there were even things like like certain people would like, and I like, regardless of how a person chooses to build their character, I like it all. Like if you give me stuff on your character, even if it's like I've played with people like Grace before who give me their 6 bullet points, and I'm totally down with that because that gives me more room to play. I'm also down with people who are like Ian and Matt who like give you like 10 pages and then, like Matt, I will tell you, I'm just going to put him on blast here for a moment, but he like has it like all tabulated and outlined and like quick referenceable, which is marvelous, but I've never seen a document like so perfectly outlined, and like as a GM I was like, why do I have quick references to characters in this 10-page document? It was perfect. It was great.
Yeah.
But like I get both ends of the spectrum, and I love them both because Grace gave me like a lot of room to play and a lot of room to like put in things. And then Matt gave me these tiny little seeds of like, I just can't wait to see whether or not, Aideen has reformed or become, even more of a butt-faced villain. So,
I think in my backstory doc, the list of like possible cons that she could have committed during her life was as long as the list of like her backstory.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was great. I was like, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
I guess we'll pull out a con here or there.
As someone who has also DM'd a campaign with Matt as a player, yeah, his backstory's work of beauty. Like they have like section titles, some of which rhyme. Like sister's mother, baby brother has stuck in my brain for like 2 years because like it's just in there.
You can also vouch for my backstory creation.
Yeah. So to segue, I discovery write my characters. So writing that out is how I come up with the character, and that comes from I got my start doing text-based role playing. So
Yeah.
So that's very like built
The
into
old
my
mushes.
DNA. Yeah. And actually for Luca, so my character who I had planned for the original campaign from like years ago, kind of became the D&D character that I'm currently playing in Ian's campaign.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. There
Oh,
are some
yeah, I can see.
Yeah.
See that.
There's some crossovers there. So then I yeah, and I think since it was an actual play with Luca, I think I might have mentioned this on the last stream, but I leaned into playing a character who I had some strong similarities with. Like we have differences and similarities, and I usually put a little bit of myself in every character I make. But with Luca, I was like, we can have some under the surface differences, but I want the surface to be somewhat similar. So it's very like natural. And then I wrote a backstory, and the character developed as I wrote the backstory. So.
Oh no, it was the footnotes. It wasn't quick references. It's footnotes.
And that's partially for my benefit too. So I will put in like, while I'm writing, I'll actually start with the footnotes sometimes, where I'll have like jot notes and then I'll have footnotes of stuff I want to put in. And then I expand like different parts. And then I leave them in because I'm like, this seems helpful to know like what page of the book I got this from, or like in case I need to check.
Well, whilst we're putting Matt on blast, so I had my character building session with him like yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. For the one shot, we did like a session 0, and then we had some stuff we needed to talk about. And then so he's just kind of sitting me down and he's like, cool, so what's your character's mother like? Okay, and what's their father like? And do they love each other, or are they kind of like, is it like a functional relationship? And did they love the character, or was it offhand? I'm like, I don't know. I just came up with a funny concept, and I've just been trying to justify it. And I'm like, it is relevant. like there's a reason we did it, but I was just kind of like, oh man, this is way more than what I normally do.
Well, and to be fair, I did tell you, I'm like, you don't need to answer all of these questions. Just like give me like one of them.
Yeah.
Uh,
And yeah, because my usual way of building is I have a concept and then I just build enough to kind of justify that concept. Like I know for this campaign, Dervish was always going to be a Colossus Blooded. I think I came up with Dervish before we even did like our test sessions where I played like a little street rat. I basically played a character that was quite similar to Ghost. But he was a steel Frucamist, which was fun because I got to play with speed. But yeah, Dervish was always going to be Colossus Blooded. And then I just kind of built from that. Kind of why is he in Elendel? Like the book the expansion goes into like why Colossus Blooded leave the groups in the roughs and come to the basin, and it is generally outcasts and people who come from tribes that have been destroyed. It's generally a last resort kind of thing, and so I was like, cool, let's give him a tragic backstory, shall we? And yeah, I just built up from there. I really liked in our session 0, there was a lot of building character in session 0. Because Natasha, you had us roll against like some tables, which were like, oh, let's give your character they've met someone from the crew in the past, and I think that's how we had Ian and Marilyn.
We drew cards.
Yes, drew cards. That was it. Yes, we drew cards. And then I think it was, I've been in a relationship recently, which is when then Leah then turned up and was like, cool, I now have an ex that I have to deal with, and stuff like that. And that was really fun. I really liked building a character that way and being asked these characters and having to come up with this stuff. I really liked that. Oh. Cool.
Everyone answered that question other than me.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
In preparing for a character-driven game, I essentially go through and I allow the players to all create their characters, and then based on that and based on their backstories, I then decide where the campaign is going to take us. So you will see, like we said, with Matt and his backstory, he provided me with Adine, or Adine. We pronounce it very many different ways. But he provided me with her, and I was like, okay, well, she would actually make a really cool villain. And I did the same with Carol. I was like, oh yeah, like I think that she as a villain interests me. And so like it was a matter of, okay, who do I want to be the big bad? Who do I want to be intermittent little bads? Who do I want to be, for each individual character, their bads. So when I plan a narrative driven game, I come at it as, let's create characters. When you present to me your character backstory, I will decide what our A plot looks like, and then your character will each have their their personal conflict to overcome or
not
deal with,
or to sink further into.
And then I plan those as our B plots. So it's very similar to like how like TV shows get written, right? You have the big overarching plot line, and then you have mini arcs for each character. And that's mainly how I do it. There are some systems that really, lead themselves toward being great narrative driven systems. Mag's narrative driven is a good system for it. So if you really like, the world building of Mistborn, it's a good place to be. I also love like Powered by the Apocalypse games, Forged in the Dark games, Belonging Outside, Belonging games. If you like narrative driven, that's a great place to start. Like while D&D is great, actually if you look at the rules, the narrative aspects of things are not supported mechanically.
Yeah.
It's generally mostly supported by your group and your GM. So you really do have to play with a good group and a good GM. Even things like inspiration, that is purely based on whether or not your GM is choosing to hand out inspiration tokens. So, really, if you want a good narrative game, look for a system that is built around driving narrative with the mechanics. So, even, I was saying like one of the things that Mag does really well is that it drives narrative by how you build your character, and that those dice pools are built off of, essentially the
Your back.
character's traits and backstory itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that like I didn't like, because like I said, Mag was pretty much the first RPG I played, tabletop role RPG I played, then D&D second, and it wasn't until I played D&D that I realized what Mag was doing to gamify narrative things, and that just D&D just doesn't do that like at all. Like you can give like the closest you come is your character background giving you like a slight bonus to your initial starting character.
Yeah, but it's purely your starting character.
Yeah, and once that character's made, it's now basically irrelevant unless the DM decides to bring in.
And it doesn't encourage you to continuously reinforce your character into how you're. It doesn't. Yeah, you're not reinforcing how you're playing the mechanics into how you're playing your character.
Yeah, like you're like in Mag, you make a backstory which gives you a trait, and then in order to use that trait, you then need to play a character, like continue playing that role. Whilst, yeah, D&D doesn't have that like at all. Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, if you want to play a narrative-driven game,
yes, look
pick a narrative-driven system.
Yeah. I thought what was interesting was Mark Browning was asking about how like we've talked a lot about Session Zero, about how it was character building, but does it actually include how our crew got together? And I think this is something we tried to talk about a bit during the campaign. I can't remember what it was, but should we talk about Calcifer for a little bit? Does someone else want to take it, or shall I just kind of give the kind of lowdown? Yeah.
Go for it.
Cool.
Go for it.
So, our crew used to have another member. Up until very recently, the crew leader was a guy called Calcifer Scars, who...
Calcifer Shard.
Sorry, Calcifer Shard. Okay. It's been a while since we've spoken about him. Arthur, this is not spoilers for season 2. We have talked about Calcifer a couple of times.
I don't think we know enough about what we're doing in season 2 to be able to reasonably spoil our own characters' plans.
Yes. Basically, we used to have a crew leader, Calcifer, who basically kind of came and like we all entered the crew different ways, but it was all generally through Calcifer, except for Ian, who entered through Luca.
After Calcifer had.
After Calcifer left. So Royce had never met Calcifer.
That I know of.
That you know of. But yeah, me and Hallie knew him for a while. Me and Marilyn worked together before we joined the crew with Calcifer. And then after Calcifer joined, then we kind of got back together. Can't remember. Luca, how did you join again?
Yeah. I won't say too much in case it comes up in game, but basically the crew leader recruited Luca directly.
I think my understanding is that the rough order is like it was Calcifer's crew, and then it was like Marilyn, Hallie, Dervish, Luca, and then he left, and then Royce. It's my understanding of the rough order of how.
Because one of the running jokes is Luca's like tag is new kid.
Yes.
And that Royce is actually newer to the group than Luca, but Luca still is new kid.
And so yeah, we left Calcifer disappearing, and why he disappeared. We left that entire. In fact, we even left the name to Natasha. Natasha holds all the cards when it comes to Calcifer.
I don't think we didn't even decide on like a gender before during session 0. So I think we were calling Calcifer like they, just vaguely like, yeah, there's a person. We don't know anything about them until like I think it was like before our session 1 started. She was like, so your crew leader was named Calcifer, and he was a dude.
Yeah, and I like that's all we have. So it's hard for us to spoil season 2 because we know as much as you guys know from watching the series about Calcifer.
There is a physical description that you all nailed down.
Yes, that's true.
I have this weird suspicion that it's gonna be like season 2 opens, and it's gonna be Royce without his memories, like eating lunch with Calcifer.
Would be fun.
Well, to be fair,
yeah,
Royce wouldn't know him to see him even if he had his memories.
It's true.
So I'm 99.9% sure this isn't the case, but this is a crack theory I messaged Natasha about multiple times. That like I don't think this is.
By the way, those paragraphs, I get a ton of crack theories. They're great.
This was at the point where I was trying to figure out because at this point I know all of the secrets except Luca's DM secret from the beginning of the game. So I'm sitting here trying halfway through trying to figure out okay, what is it? And then I'm just trying to think of what it could be. And also at that point I realized nobody has a secret that has dealt with Royce at all. So I'm what secret could Luca have about Royce? And then I'm what if Calcifer it's actually Royce's dad who faked his death? Which I don't think is the case.
Ian, how could you
what
not
if
chime in on my long rant of Luca DM secret crack theories? You're coming up with your own.
Mm-hmm. I keep things very close to the chest. You all know this.
Yeah, you do.
We really do.
I think
I don't think it's true.
One thing we did come up with for him, or talked briefly about when we were talking about our recruitment, there was a kind of a theme of we were approached or recruited at kind of a low point.
Yeah.
For many of us. And that he kind of brought us out of that in some way by getting us into the crew. So there's some potential interesting dynamics there, but
It's also fascinating that, Royce joined the crew when he did.
And I think all of us as players were side-eyeing the last name Shard.
Yeah, that is a very side-eye worthy name.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
Calcifer's a world hopper confirmed. No.
I'm just.
We don't know.
Could
be.
Yeah, he just disappeared to go take care of some other business in other places.
He just went off wild for a bit. He'll be back.
Places.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. And then at the end of season 1 we got the ghost might know something, and so we can find out more. At the beginning of season 2.
That gets into why Royce didn't pry, because he never met Calcifer. He
just
doesn't care.
Yeah. And I think the reason I want to say one of the reasons we came up with this idea was because Mag in its crew creation asks you to designate a crew leader, and we were we don't know who the crew leader is. So then that's why we were why don't we have a crew leader, but they've recently left. And so we're kind of all a little rudderless, and then we'll see what happens. And then we had a whole episode where a child kept asking, "Who's the boss?"
Except
we don't know.
Never ask Royce.
Yeah. Who's the boss, I think, is a very actually important episode for this campaign. It's oh my gosh. Yeah.
You're killing us over here, Natasha.
It's fine.
I love it.
Fine. I just feel that like chat needs to understand the pain that you all go through.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
regularly. Ask questions, get answers, but not the answers that you really want.
I still don't like how you just said, it's interesting that Royce joined the crew when he did. I don't like that statement. I'm not happy about this.
I mean, I'm also familiar enough with DM trolling to know that it could very well just be DM trolling.
True,
Yeah,
true.
I could just be trolling you.
Yeah.
And we'll never know the difference.
I have to raise Ben's stress levels somehow
Mhm.
during our periods together.
Yeah, absolutely. Millian152 asked, at the end of the campaign, how many advancement points did we all have left?
Well, I mean, technically we spent them all because we decided they didn't carry over to season 2.
I have not spent mine yet.
Yeah. I
But
think
I have two
Well,
options.
we're all going to spend them before season 2.
yes.
Let's just say I had a full bar and I spent them all.
All 20.
Yes.
Yeah. Luca also had 20, and I have plotted out a couple different ways to spend them all, and I'm just kind of deciding.
Yeah,
You're also stewing? You
Yeah.
also stew. You don't decide everything immediately after in a giant paragraph.
Hey,
No.
I
Although
did.
I
not
did
decide
send you a
things.
giant paragraph about Luca's
true,
advancements,
you
but I
did.
did say
You did.
I'm just writing this to get it down and it can sit.
I had 19, 4 of which I spent to change my tragedy for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
The remaining 15, like I laid out 2 options I could go.
Why don't you talk through them and we can help you decide?
Yeah. Let us know. What are the 2 options, Ian?
I will tell you one of them. One of them is
Okay.
just to boost my resources to reflect having access to his trust fund.
Okay.
You know, if he accepts that.
I'm probably the.
It comes with strings.
It does.
I did not have many at the end of our last session because I am the most eager to spend mine. Like, I feel like I am the most confident of the group in like knowing where I want to spend them and spending them immediately, which is mostly just taking all of the brass allomancy stunts and boosting my brass. I'm up to 9 in my brass allomancy rating with a max of 10. I'm very excited about that.
Brass allomancy has all these stunts. Brass ferrochemy, 1.
Well, we
I have 2
homebrewed
only
yours.
because we homebrewed 1. Yes. So it's and ferrochemists get the raw end of the stick.
Meanwhile, I think Lucas hit 20 a couple of times.
Stay.
Because I'm just like, oh, I'm not sure what to do.
I definitely hit 20 multiple times, and I had 20 during the finale. And I think I spent, I want to say 13. I think I did a 5 and a 9 and a 5 and a 4 and a 4. Because like I'm kind of happy where Dervish is stats wise. Like I'm already at max strength. Like I started at max strength because Cold Blooded get +2 dice to any just for physique rolls. They just start at +2. Then when you are doing something physical strength related, you then get +1 die. And you can only roll a max of 10 die, and I'm at 7 strength, and I roll 10 die on strength checks now. That on my, so there's no point in me upping his strength anymore, and that's why I've just taken all of the stunts, giving him multi attack. What was the other one? Rapid healing, massive jump. But I started with that one. That was an important one to take.
That was so good.
I'm so glad I took it. It was my favorite. But yeah, I think I was there, and I didn't want to give him like an Almantic, or I didn't want him snapping. I didn't feel it was right for him, you know. So I've just stayed at 20 and then just been spending them here and there. Yeah. Another question. Actually, we should talk about a little about this. Is someone asked, "What is it like? What do we do after a session?" And like our process for, what is an after session like. I don't know, Natasha, you run those, so I don't know if you want to take this away.
Sure. So as a professional GM and as a what I consider to be a good GM is you should be doing a breakdown with your group and making sure that you are helping them decompress in some way. So one, make sure that you're checking in with them. So like we do roses, thorns, seeds, and weeds, which is a twist on a couple other safety tools. But essentially it's, what were the highlights of the games? What were the roses, right? What were, the big moments that we loved? What were the thorns, kind of the things that we didn't like, or those like little prickle moments, and this is intentionally important to say thorns versus weeds, because weeds are the things that we don't like that we want to get rid of, but thorns are the things that we don't like but are okay still being around and that are still important to our plant. And then seeds, which are things that we want to pursue later on. So these are the things that have been planted and that we want to see come back in future sessions. And this is a really helpful tool, one, for your group to help them decompress, to talk about, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they want to see, what they don't want to see. But as a GM for future planning, because then I can take, the seeds, these are where I need to focus my attention. And there are some really helpful things that have come out of this because I've been told things by my player like, hey, I do have no interest in exploring this. Like earlier on, we had a thing. Grace, is it okay if I talk about your romance and how you were like,
Sure, I think that was like our
that was a session
pre-session thing.
That was our pregame. Yeah.
So in one of our test game, I had someone, try to create a romantic connection with the character that Grace was playing. And then after the game, Grace was like, I didn't really enjoy that. I'm okay with having romance in the game, but if in the future I would like it to either be my character initiating it or just, to not really be there. And so I took note of that and I was like, okay, for Grace, this is what needs to happen. And so I could, adjust. And for Ben, though, we had, Leah show up later on, and I didn't know how the Leah scene was going to go down, and Ben didn't either. He's never, role played a love connection in an RPG before. And so afterwards we had to have that same conversation of, was this okay? How were you feeling? What's going on with you? And he was like, yeah, it was a little stressful. It was a little weird, kind of out of my comfort zone. And I was like, well, is that something that you're wanting to explore more of? Is it something that you actually liked? Or was it weird in a bad way of like, this is a weed, something I don't want to explore? And so we had that conversation, and Ben was like, no, I'm good with it. So yes, that portion is really important. And then also we do advancements afterwards. We do planning of when our next session will be afterwards. We always schedule our next episode or next recording, which is really good on Ben's part.
Yes. I think I remember reading a thing about DMing games, and I remember just reading someone like where some DM was like, I just wish someone else would handle the scheduling. Why do I have to handle the scheduling as well as DMing the game? And I was like, I'm gonna take that off Natasha's plate. I'm like, I will handle the scheduling. And so we always make sure we plan the next session at the end of every session, and sometimes we do the next two as well, just to get them booked in.
They don't always work out
that
far ahead, but we try.
For Millian, we did announce the Leatherbound winner. It was a gentleman named Dark Mirius, or Miroslav Minarak. So I don't think they're in the chat, and so I'll be reaching out to them. I just saw another question come in. Ooh, Bubbles asked Natasha, if you were to play a character in Mag, what powers would you want?
I just know myself well enough to know that I tend to play like support characters that tend to be more in like the charisma realm or information gathering realm. So it just so happens that my, villains for this are rioters and, Rioter and Tinai. It's fine. But yeah, so it'd probably be somewhere within that realm of, rioter or soother, Tenai, seeker.
That's cool. Cool. So I think pretty much all the questions we had left were regarding what things from the Lost Metal do we want to include in season 2, but we have said that we are not going to be talking about the Lost Metal because we don't want to be spoiling it. There's people in the chat who haven't read it. So Natasha's not read it. And so, yeah. Unless anyone else has anything they want to hear, I think we might be wrapping up.
And there was the question. There's one question sitting out there that I know most of us have the same answer to, because it was what choice by another character surprised you the most. Yeah.
Ian, do you want to answer?
Do you want to answer for us?
Yeah, I feel like we need to have a discussion.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So like this was a thing, like a comment a while ago of like how long I had that planned, and it's like at this point it's hard to remember because it's been a long time. Because like we recorded the session 0 in January, so it's like been pretty much a year. Yeah. I knew for most of the season that Royce was going to quit the crew at the end of the season. Because he felt like he wasn't a member of the crew, that like I felt like that was a sticking point that needed to happen. And then like I kept toying with the idea of like, of him storing away his memories. And like I went back and forth on it, but it's the episode 9 is where a lot of things for Royce crystallized. And like I enjoyed playing Royce before that, but that's where Royce really became real for me. And also where I'm like, oh, he's very similar to myself. Oh, good. Oh no. But it's about there where like I really started considering it. And then after recording episode 11, like, because like it's not immediately after that I send the wall of text to Natasha. It's usually the next day after I've had a night to think and process it. But like I wrote out like the monologue of that mid-credit sequence, and I just had that sitting in a Google Doc for a month before we recorded those finale episodes.
I still can't believe you did it. I still.
It was very good.
It was
very good, and I was in full support of it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember going through just a rainbow of emotion, of just shock. I remember I was legitimately upset, not like angry upset, like upset, like sad, like a bit heartbroken. I was like, I was like, Ian, like in my head, I'm like, Ian, are you quitting Diceborn? You should have told me. Like,
yeah, like did that actually make it into the episode where I had to like, no, he's coming back next season. Don't worry.
I can't remember if we left that in or if that was after the intro. But yeah, it was a case of like, I was like, are you that's what I thought. I was like, are you quitting? Like, what is happening here? But yeah, I just. And then now I'm like, I think I've messaged you a couple of times the last few months, being like, so Ian, what's your plan with Royce? And you're like, I don't know, don't know yet.
I don't know, because Natasha still needs to think about things, and I need to figure out how I'm living.
And I think we also need to mention, speaking of quitting the crew.
Yeah.
I think we need to mention Dervish and how Ben was like, up until like the last episode,
It was
he
like
was like,
2 days.
I think next season I'm gonna play a different character. I think next season I'm gonna play a different character. I even have this concept of another character that I'm gonna play. And I was just like,
Make up your mind, Ben.
Ben, I mean, I know, like, it's fine. I can do things, but like, I'm like, I have plot points into season 2 for Dervish. It's fine. I will rewrite them, but there are cool things with this sword.
Yeah.
I
So
will give it Ben. Cool. Anyway,
yeah. Let me
so
talk about that.
when he made the decision to, stay, I was like, thank you.
And that was
Yeah.
literally like 2 days before we recorded the finale. Like, but I finally made my mind up.
Just if I can say another thing about Royce's
Go for it.
decision to step away. I also love how like the dominoes fell in that, because it was like Luca was like needing some space potentially, and then but he didn't want Royce to be alone, because his grandma knows that Royce knows about hemalurgy. And then the fact that Royce paired off with Marilyn, who is like the character who would let him go, and because where she's at, and how like I loved how like where Marilyn's arc was and where Royce's arc was just like met up in the way no one wanted it to meet up, but made perfect sense in character, because it was like, of course,
there is
like
going to be conflict about that
yeah,
in season
yeah.
2
Mhm.
for
because
sure.
I imagine Hallie and Luca, when they find out that Marilyn didn't just let him go but encouraged him to go, they're both going to be
There was
rather
a moment during
mixed.
that conversation where I was like, do I respond and be like, I understand, but the door's always open, or do I respond with, I think a clean break is best? And I went for the latter one, knowing it was
And
her.
from Hallie's point of view, that is a complete and utter betrayal of someone that she considered a full member of the crew. Whether or not he did or not, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. He took the same risks everyone did. In this particular case, this last job we pulled of rescuing Luca, he took the biggest risk, and we're just gonna cut him loose without any sort of backup or anything like that. That is just like you don't do your friends dirty like that.
Yeah.
But-
Also, I had been planning him to leave the crew. I did not anticipate quite the circumstances of like how perilous it will be for him, which is my own fault because like I messaged Natasha like between like 12 and 13 of like, oh, like throw some spice on it, like give me like more of a reason to leave. I'm like, but like also like if you go back to like and we watched the end of episode 13, it's like when we're going to brunch the following day, like I mentioned that like Voice looks like he hasn't slept because he was packing, because he knew he was gonna leave. And so like and then like they're all like planning out like what's happening next, and like I very purposely like stayed back because like Voice is like, I'm not
involved.
going to be involved, like I shouldn't be part of the planning for this, and I'm just sitting here figuring out like, okay, how do I go back to the flat to get my bags and leave? And then Matt just gave me, it's like, oh, I think you should move out. Like, thank you
For your own safety.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it like the dominant, like, yeah, like it was like, yeah, Luca, where him and Royce were at, and then the fact that he went with Marilyn instead of anyone else.
Oh,
in the
he chose
crew.
Marilyn for a reason.
He chose Marilyn. And like Grace, I like love the way you played that scene because it was so in character, and like because Royce and Marilyn have had this like tension like throughout the season.
They don't like each other.
Or well,
Royce doesn't like her.
so yeah, it was just me as a like consumer of this media was like, it's so good, but me as a fellow player, I'm still mad at Ian.
Now I need to think of how I can top this for next season.
You could give someone else a chance.
I think literally all of the rest of us are united in like keeping secrets and trying to pull one over on Ian.
Yes,
absolutely.
yeah.
All the secret chats happening.
Yeah.
That Ian's
If
not
anyone
a part
has
of.
any ideas, I will facilitate that.
Yeah.
He also dumped all of his memories, so it should give you a
Yeah.
leg up.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, only for the last 3 months, so he still remembers 2 members of the crew.
yeah.
Just saying. So it'll be very interesting who comes and talks to him first.
We'll have to wait and see. Yeah. Still can't believe you did it, yeah. Yeah, let me I'll talk about quickly about Dervish leaving and where my brain was with that.
Yeah,
It
so
made
glad he's
sense.
staying, by the way.
I got it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, he just felt, I don't know. I think early on, I just he felt a little out of place with the rest of the crew because he's a little bit older than the rest of the crew. He comes from a very different background of everyone else. And he just felt to me a little out of place. That's why I early on started thinking maybe I should have him leave. We also started dealing with like the main conflicts of his backstory, and like for season 2, I'm gonna have to like expand his backstory because we like
Only a little bit.
yeah.
You'd be surprised.
Oh, okay. Maybe I don't have to expand my backstory. And so I just kind of was like, oh, do I want to play someone else? Like, do I like playing a big brute character? I play a big brute character in my D&D game, so I think I was just getting like, I want to try something other than a big brute character. But then it kind
You're
of
a big brute character with a marshmallow center.
exactly, and so it's slightly different to Big Dave, who's my D&D character. And so it's yeah, I think in the end I was quite happy just to stick around with him, just because speaking to Natasha, you were like, don't worry, I've got stuff planned for Dervish. I'm like, okay, that's good. And yeah, I just came to like playing him.
Well, and I think in the end, what I was hoping was that Dervish would come to feel, I think part of it was that Dervish didn't feel like a part of the crew as far as how the crew functioned.
Yeah.
Right? And then once we got into a different place, right, as the season progressed, I think Dervish started feeling more a part of the crew as far as how it functioned, and started making more sense there, and that was really also a change point a little too.
And I think it was because when we were first planning this, I think my original idea was season 1 would be like one set of characters, and then season 2 would be a different set of characters. And so in my brain, I had already said like, cool, once the season's done, Dervish is gone in my brain. And then you guys were all like, we want to keep the same characters from season 2. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because I knew like Royce was going to be in a very bad situation at the end of the season. I'm like, no, I need time to resolve this.
And so yeah, I think that was also an element of it, but I think that got dropped pretty early on. Or rather, we made the decision that season 2 would be the same characters pretty early on. We'll see what happens in 2024 when the Stormlight RPG comes out. We'll see what happens with Diceborn then.
That's when it's getting kickstarted.
That's when it's getting kickstarted. True. Yeah. So we don't actually know when.
It's still going to be a while. We could easily go up through season 3 on this.
Yeah.
I have ideas
before
for
Stormlight.
a season 3 arc for Royce.
Oh,
oh my goodness! I don't even like. I'm not there yet. Stop.
Let's see how season 1 or season 2 goes. And,
and then yeah.
Natasha could be planning to kill all of us off at the end of season 2. We don't know.
No,
we got Bubbles going.
Do you
guys have
planning on it?
If Bubbles, they're asking if we have backup characters in case the current ones end up dying suddenly. Nope.
Maybe I should get one.
But in part, that's because of how MAG works.
Yeah.
Right. You don't. MAG isn't like D&D, in where you can just die.
Yeah.
It's more like, oh, hey, you dropped to 0 HP. Now you have, like essentially conditions that make your life harder. And you as a player decide when your character dies or retires and what
Yeah.
that narratively makes sense.
Yeah, there's
And
Yeah,
Matt.
take an
Knowing
arrow
what-
to the knee and have to quit adventuring.
and knowing what I know about this group, I think anyone could come up with a new character if they needed to
pretty
really
easily.
quick.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's not that like your characters when they hit, you could hit 0 HP in all three categories. I don't know if people who don't know, you have a physical health, a like social standing health, and like a willpower health. You could hit 0 on all three of these, and the mag rulebook basically says characters only die if it's like narratively like appropriate. So like it's not to say, you know, we're definitely going to like we're immortal and we're never going to die. If we're in a situation where like it's a dramatic thing for us to die, we would be very much, you know, like during the duel, Devish definitely could have died. His sister definitely could have killed him. That was definitely on the table.
For
But
sure.
yeah, and so
Well, and for
Yeah.
sure, like Luca dying or Royce dying in that final scene, definitely on the table.
yeah,
But there's also
Slim chance
yeah,
on the table.
but there are also oftentimes much more interesting and terrible things you can do
Yes.
instead of a character death.
As Ian has
Death-
demonstrated to us
Death
all.
is not interesting.
yeah,
Generally.
yeah. But yeah, cool. Luca was also literally on a table.
Yes, that thought occurred to me as well.
Okay, so we said we'd go for about 3 hours. I don't know if we told the audience that we were planning on for about 3 hours, but we generally we put a 3 hour slot in for all our streams. We're coming up on that 3 hours, so I think do we ever do anything else anyone want to talk about?
I did just want to tell this as a story because I think this
Go for
got like referenced once or twice in the last couple episodes, and the audience probably doesn't know why. So there was one point when I was speculating on what Matt's like GM secret could be, and I threw out the idea that he was like looking through Royce's stuff and found a necklace with a shard of stained glass on it, and he didn't know what that was from, but like the reveal would be that Royce was a sliverist all along.
Yeah.
As a joke, but then that sort of became like the joke throughout the end is like, oh yeah, we're just gonna find out that Royce is a sliverist. Like that's the reveal that's coming.
Yeah.
Which fun backs. I don't know if this came up during the session 0, but like I was originally planning on making him a sliverist because like, oh, sliverists worship Marsh. Marsh is cool. Like that'd be interesting. And then I read the lore for the sliverists and like, oh, they're an evil cult. Nah.
Yeah.
But I do like to think there are like sliverists who are like
Chill.
these are like the extreme wing of the
Yeah.
sliverists. Like I feel like there are sliverists who are like chill and just like
Oh, that Lord Ruler
Worship
guy
death.
seemed nice, you know.
They're misguided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They, you know, history was mostly erased, and you know,
Yeah.
And
Well,
like Marsh is a cool guy. I can see worshipping Marsh.
Yeah.
and it's a big difference. Like in the books, we just get little tidbits about sliverists, whereas in the mag, like
Yeah,
because I was
there's
kind of like,
pages.
oh, like it would make sense if Luca's family were like sliverists because they're like an old noble family. And then yeah, in the book, I was like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, I always love looking through, telling people that Mistborn Adventure game rulebooks, they have so much more info in factions, and like there is like details on all like of the 7 factions in the Southern Scadrians in that Masks of the Past. All the religions have like several pages dedicated to them. There is like
it's a really cool book just
Yeah.
to read as far as lore
Yeah.
goes.
yeah.
I just wish we knew how much of the lore was from Brandon's actual
Yeah.
notes that he gave them and how much was stuff they made up.
Like if you ask Brandon, I believe it's all canon.
Until it's not.
Until it's not
Yeah.
is kind of
Which-
the status it's in. So it's like, yeah.
Mhm.
But they're still great to read. I love reading them.
Mhm.
Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna call it there. Thank you everyone in the chat for joining us. we always love doing. I love doing streams. I love interacting with you guys like we can, on a live basis. And so yeah, I'm so glad you all enjoyed Diceborn. I'm assuming the only people in the chat are the people who've watched the whole season. So thank you so much for watching the whole season. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I hope you're excited
Send
for
it
season
to
2.
your friends,
Send it to your friends. Yeah.
your family,
Yep.
and your enemies.
Yep.
Just
And
cover
if
all the
you
bases.
have any questions or if you need a
Yeah.
GM, I'm around. I also do like GM consultations. I did one for Matt. So if you're looking to create your own campaign for MAG or any other system, but like MAG specifically, because now I've worked with it. So
Yeah. So yeah. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
for Matt's awesome